Chapter 1483. One had to know that the ancient noble houses and ancient sects had the same status. They were one level higher than the hidden houses and normal sects. And this young man in front of him was from the ancient noble house Fong Nian. His name was Domineering, but he had the right to be domineering. With him in the team, Qi believed that he and Yushan would be able to pass the Ice Palace test without a hitch. You can't say that there are other ancient sects and ancient noble houses participating in the test. I'm not the only one. Nidian might have said that, but he didn't look humble at all. It was obvious that he had accepted Yushan's words. But we're all at the same level as the ancients. Will give each other some face. That's right, that's right. Not to be outdone, Yushan said. Big Bro Nitian's face is definitely bigger than ours. To have Big Bro Nitian join our team is the honor of 3 lifetimes. This time, if anyone doesn't like it, Nitian Bro will kill them with his arts. Qi couldn't help but admire the words arts. Arts that defied the heavens. This was something that defied the heavens. Before, Fong Nitian had only shown a little of his skills, and it was enough to make Qi, Qijio, and Yushan submit to him. Even if Nitian was from the ancient Fong house, Qi and the others wouldn't need to be so polite to him. They weren't on the same level, and it was fine to be respectful, but there was no need to be too polite. Nitian was just a disciple here to participate in the test. He wouldn't be able to do anything for their families, so they were completely shocked by his performance. The level of the ancient sects and ancient aristocratic families was indeed very powerful. Hidden noble houses. They weren't even on the same level. Arts that defied the heavens were indeed very strong. Fong Nitian's arts were very strange. He could create a small field around him, and the people in this field wouldn't be able to move at all. Although the area was small, and the time limit was very short, Fong Nitian couldn't move at all. Nitian was at the 3rd level, and he could only restrict people's movements for around 3 minutes, and the effective range was only around 3 meters, but that was more than enough. Think about it, even a super master wouldn't be able to move. Being locked in place and unable to move, wasn't that equivalent to sitting on the ground and waiting for death? This meant that Fong Nitian's arts were extremely powerful. Of course, in the Fong clan, besides the Fong clan's ancestor, only he had successfully cultivated this miraculous mental cultivation method. There were many requirements for cultivating this mental cultivation method. It was not something that ordinary people could achieve. As a result, Fong Nitian was highly regarded in the family. Other than training, he also wanted to make a name for himself. If he passed the test, his name would be even more famous in the house. In order to make preparations for him to smoothly become the young patriarch. After Nitian became the young master, the position of the head of the house would naturally fall into his father's hands. His uncle, who had the advantage now, would be kicked out of the competition. Of course, even if Fong Nitian didn't participate in this test, he would still be able to participate because of the Fong old ancestors' love for him. With his own cultivation, he could still become the head of the house, but he wouldn't have any outstanding achievements. The process would be slow, and Fong Nitian didn't want to wait any longer. The more he looked at his uncle and his honest brother, the more he didn't like them. Therefore, as long as he could successfully pass this trial and become one of the top 3, he would be able to win some heavenly treasures for his family. Although the ancient Fong family didn't lack heavenly treasures, what he wanted was the honor, not the items. As for taking in a few followers to run errands for him, Fong Nitian, naturally, didn't mind sharing some of the merits with them. As far as Fong Nitian was concerned, as long as he used his heaven-defying arts on the test field, wouldn't he be able to do whatever he wanted? He would be able to hurt them if he wanted to. He would be able to steal their points if he wanted to. Getting the first place in the test was as easy as flipping his hand. Every time I use the heaven-defying arts, it consumes a large amount of qi. I can't use it as I please, I can only use it 3 to 5 times. Fong Nitian waved his hand. So, don't just sit around and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. In fact, with his current strength, he could only use it 3 times at most. 5 times was basically impossible, but Fong Nitian was just bragging. That's more than enough. We'll see who gets the most points then, and we'll use it if we can't win. Nikian bro, please go out and use your heaven-defying arts against him, Yushan said. That works too, it's also a form of training for you guys. Otherwise, I'll just attack and there'll be no point in the test anymore, Feng Nikian said, acting cool. Of course, of course. Qikuan and Yushan nodded. The four returned to the inn and saw 6 people sitting in front of the door. 5 of them were surrounding one person, as if they were meditating. What are they doing? Feng Nikian frowned and pointed at Zhang Naipeo. I don't know, Nikian bro, I'll go ask? Yushan asked. Alright, go ahead and ask. Feng Nikian nodded. The qi here is thicker than other places, but it's not like they're training out in the open. Isn't it the same in the inn? Oh, you guys, what are you doing? With Feng Nikian's support, Yushan's arrogance was revealed, and he wasn't as restrained as before. Zhuang Nipao and the others were focused on guarding when someone walked over and shouted, and they jumped up in fright. Although they were furious, they didn't want to disturb Master Pao's training, so they didn't say anything. Fuck, I'm talking to you guys, are you deaf? Can't you hear me? Yushan saw that these people were ignoring him and was pissed. Open your dog eyes and look, this is Nikian bro from the ancient noble house Feng, why aren't you guys bowing to him? Seeing how arrogant this person was, Zhuang Nipao and Zhuang Niaoqiang couldn't sit still anymore. They wanted to stand up and teach this guy a lesson, but before they could stand up, they heard what he said. What? Someone from the ancient Feng family? Zhuang Nipao was about to stand up and beat him up, but he quickly stood up and explained. I'm sorry, the disciple of the ancient sect everyday sect, Master Pao, is training here, and we're here to guard him. Although they had Zhang Naipeo's support, they couldn't afford to offend an ancient noble house. To be continued. High-speed text. Chapter 1484. School Beauty's Personal Expert 1482. School Beauty's Personal Expert Chapter 1482. Late Phase Mystic Class. Late Phase. If it was a disciple from a normal hidden family, they would not have given a damn about it. However, an ancient family was different. They were as powerful as an ancient sect. High-quality text first, all above. They couldn't be disrespected. What? There's someone from an ancient sect training here? Feng Nikian was taken aback as well. He didn't know that the person in the middle was from an ancient sect, but now that he knew, naturally he wouldn't disturb him anymore. His purpose for coming out this time was to get on the good side of the disciples from other ancient sects and ancient houses, so that he could compete for the position of the head of his house in the future. So, after Feng Nikian heard that there was someone from an ancient sect training here, he quickly said, Then I'm sorry for disturbing you. When this brother is done with his training, please tell him that Feng Nikian of the ancient house Feng will come to him personally to apologize. No problem, Nikian bro. Zhuang Niapeo quickly nodded. Although this person said that he would come and apologize, it was just polite words. Zhuang Niapeo still knew how to differentiate between good and bad. What's going on? Why is he training here? Feng Nikian was a bit weird. An ancient sect shouldn't lack places to train. Why would he suddenly train in front of an inn in the middle of the night? Zhuang Niapeo didn't dare to hide anything and told him everything that happened. And when Lin Yi's name was mentioned, Zhao Qikuan naturally heard it as Ling Yi. The two names were very similar, so he thought that Zhuang Niapeo couldn't pronounce the words properly. What? Ling Yi is crippled? Zhao Qikuan froze, thinking that it was a waste to try and recruit him. If he knew that he had an ancient sect as his enemy, he wouldn't have wasted his effort. However, when Yushan heard the news, high-quality text first, all in percent, this time, his big brother was really happy. The ally he just recruited was crippled. Haha, he must be very happy, right? You Bing, let's see how you're going to compete with me this time. I have Feng Nikian of the ancient house Feng as my support. What do you have? Your only ally is crippled. Just wait to be eliminated this time. 5 years later, when I return from my studies, the future head of house you will be me. You're nothing in front of me. I see. Nikian nodded. He didn't show it on the surface, but he was incomparably shocked in his heart. He originally thought that his mental cultivation method was heaven-defying enough, but he didn't expect that the person in front of him was even more heaven-defying than him, to actually be able to absorb the true chi of others. This was simply too terrifying, right? Of course, Naipeo was very strong in the eyes of Chikuin and the others as well. Feng Nitian's kung fu was just as strong, and both of them were from the ancient world. They couldn't please both of them at the same time, and now that they had a good relationship with Feng Nitian, Zhang Naipeo couldn't be fawning on him anymore. Then I won't disturb Brother Naipeo's training any longer. And Tian will take his leave. Nitian said politely and left with Chikuin and Yushan, heading towards the inn, 5 o'clock in the morning. Suddenly, the heaven and earth spiritual chi in the air above the inn became denser and denser. Any experienced cultivator would know that this was a sign that someone was about to break through. He couldn't sense it from far away, but he could still clearly sense it if it was close by. I'm about to break through. Everyone stay alert! Zhuang Niapeo yelled to the others who were protecting Naipeo. Yes! Everyone quickly answered and prepared for battle. Inside the inn, in Nitian's room, Chikuin and Yushan were talking to him when Nitian suddenly stopped and walked to the window. The one down there, is he about to break through? After Nitian finished his sentence, Nitian's eyes widened. Only then did Chikuin and Yushan feel that the energy around them had thickened. They didn't notice it before, but they were disciples of a hidden noble house, and they were weaker than Nitian, who came from an ancient noble house. They weren't as sensitive as him. Boom dash! Nitian's words had just landed when the energy of heaven and earth gathered together in the square below the inn before exploding and dispersing rapidly. Mystic late phase! He actually broke through to mystic late phase. What an overbearing art! Nitian sighed. Yeah, but Brother Nitian, you're not bad yourself. High quality text first, all in percent. Haha, mystic late phase, that's just the same level as me, it's nothing. Nitian waved his hand. Let's continue our conversation. What else do you guys want to know about the ancient noble houses? Nitian had been answering Chikuin and Yushan's questions, teaching them about the ancient sects and ancient noble houses. Of course, what Nitian said wasn't any secret, it was something everyone in the ancient world knew, but the disciples of the hidden noble houses didn't know much about it. So, Nitian didn't mind showing off in front of them to raise his status. However, after Zhang Naipeo broke through, the owner of the inn squinted his eyes and looked outside the inn. He raised his head and looked upstairs, a flash of surprise in his eyes as he mumbled to himself. Someone broke through upstairs. Could it be that person? It seems like this test is full of talents. With that, the owner's eyes returned to their previous calmness, and he didn't say anything else. Linny let out a breath of turbid air, a smile on his face. I finally broke through. Zhang Naipeo, I really have to thank you, you've broken through too, but without you, I wouldn't have the chance to break through. In this period of time, Linny had been showing signs of breaking through to mystic late phase, but he lacked a chance, and with this chance today, Linny broke through. This was an unexpected reward for Linny. Linny stretched lazily, feeling an indescribable sense of satisfaction. Leveling up naturally was much more comfortable than using compressed energy to break through. At least his clothes weren't destroyed, and it wasn't that painful when he broke through. Oink oink. Skybold Pig looked at Linny enviously. This little thing couldn't understand how Linny, who looked like he didn't have any strength at all, became stronger in such a short amount of time. What was going on? Ha! Little guy, you want to level up too? Linny broke through to mystic late phase, and his mood was very good. Naturally, his attitude towards Skybold Pig got better as well. Oink oink. Skybold Pig quickly nodded. All right. Linny agreed quickly. I'll use this breakthrough to turn you into a mystic high-class pig. Oink oink. Skybold Pig heard Lin Yi's words and started dancing in excitement. But I'll leave the task of finding the fire spirit's fruit to you, you'll have to work hard. Lin Yi reminded. To be continued, School Beauty's Personal Expert 1482, School Beauty's Personal Expert Chapter 1482, Mystic Late Phase Update complete. Chapter 1485. Campus Belle's Personal Expert 1483. Campus Belle's Personal Expert. Chapter 1483. School Beauty's Personal Master. Chapter 1483. Slapping his face. Oink! Skybolt Pig nodded in agreement. Come on then, little thing! Linny picked up Skybolt Pig and entered the jade space again. He could feel that Skybolt Pig didn't have any practitioner's arts. The energy in his body was accumulated from treasures, very similar to Lin Yi's all-purpose energy. After Lin Yi's energy entered Skybolt Pig's body, it merged perfectly with the energy from before. It seemed like the pure chi in a spirit beast's body was the same as his own energy. No wonder General Wei Wu could level up. Healing spirit beasts were similar to other spirit beasts, except that they had the natural ability to transfer all-purpose energy to others. General Wei Wu happened to have this ability, and that was why Elder Yu treated it as a healing spirit beast. Other spirit beasts had different abilities, but the all-purpose energy in their body was the same. It was just that they didn't know how to transfer it. Although this energy was all-purpose, it couldn't be transferred to others before it was transferred. Even if it was all-purpose, it wouldn't help. So, only people like Lin Yi, who practiced all-purpose energy, could use it. This was one of the weaknesses of spirit beasts. When Skybolt Pig broke through to the early phase of Mystic, the sky was already bright. Lin Yi patted the little guy in front of him lightly and smiled. All right, little guy, hide yourself, I'm going to see my old friend. Yu Bing probably didn't sleep well the whole night, right? With that thought, Lin Yi felt touched. Although he didn't get along with the common House Yu and some people in the hidden House Yu, his friendship with Yu Bing was real. But the friendship between him and Yu Bing was real. It didn't matter if it was because of Yu Ning or not. Yu Bing treated him as a friend, and so he was very grateful. If there was a chance, Lin Yi would definitely repay him, but Yu Bing didn't need anything at the moment. Skybolt Pig had just broken through and was running around the house excitedly when he heard Lin Yi's words. Reluctantly, he found a place to hide. Before the trial began, Lin Yi did not plan to let too many people know about the existence of the Skybolt Pig, in order to avoid unnecessary trouble. Once the trial began, everyone was destined to become enemies. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of others robbing it. The worst that could happen was a fight. However, he believed that if these people couldn't see through the secret of the Skybolt Pig and just treated it as an ordinary profound rank pet with no attack power, no one would rob it. This kind of thing was useless. In the ancient sects, there were many people who raised some spirit beasts as pets. However, although these spirit beasts were powerful, their combat power was very weak. They would not cause much harm to humans. Lin Yi pushed the door open and walked out of the bedroom to see Zhao Qikuan, Zhao Qijiu, and two people he didn't know. One of them looked similar to Yu Bing, so he should be Yu Shan from House Yu. As for the other person, Lin Yi had never seen him before, but he felt like he had seen him before. He couldn't tell who he looked like. Isn't this Brother Ling? How are you? Are you all right? I heard that you were injured yesterday, so I wanted to go see you, but I didn't want to disturb you. Are you all right? Zhao Qikuan pretended to greet Lin Yi. Zhao Qikuan was obviously more shrewd than Yu Shan. He already knew that Lin Yi couldn't be roped in, and Lin Yi was already crippled. But after all, they had drunk together before, so he still pretended to comfort him. Ah, thank you for your concern, Brother Zhao. I'm fine. Lin Yi smiled and nodded at this Qikuan. Towards this Zhao Qikuan, Lin Yi didn't have much of a bad impression of him. This person was smooth, but he was easier to get along with than Qibing. His instincts told him that they were enemies, just like Yu Bing and Yu Shan. Nothing? He's probably crippled, and is about to say goodbye to my brother? Yu Shan said in a strange tone. But that big brother of mine sure is unlucky. He just found an ally, but he became a cripple. How sad, how sad! Yu Shan used to be a reserved person, but after suddenly becoming Nitian's boss, his ego swelled up, and he started to do some crazy things. Kacha! The door next to Lin Yi's was pushed open, and Yu Bing glared at Yu Shan. Yu Shan, what did you say? Say it again. Eh? What? Did I say something wrong? Did I step on your sore spot? You couldn't take it anymore and jumped out? Yushan curled his lips as he looked at Yu Bing. Yushan, you're getting more and more out of hand. Yu Bing was furious. You've been picking on me all the time, and I've tolerated it. But you shouldn't treat other people's pain like a joke. Who do you think you are? Nian was getting impatient after hearing Yu Bing's nagging. He wanted to go out to eat, but he was delayed here. Naturally, he wasn't happy about it. Who are you? This is House Yu's business, you have no right to butt in. Yu Bing didn't expect someone else to help Yushan. No right to butt in. Nian raised his hands and made a weird hand sign in the air. He smiled coldly. Ignorant trash, it's as easy as flipping my hand to kill you. With that, Nian raised his right hand and slapped Yu Bing across the face with a loud slap. He then slapped the other side of Yu Bing's face with another slap. Yu Bing was slapped across the other side of his face. Yu Bing, on the other hand, just stood there, not moving at all. It was as if he was waiting to be slapped. He didn't do anything at all. Lin Yi was quite far away, but he could see Yu Bing's expression. Yu Bing's face was filled with rage, but he didn't move at all. He didn't even fight back. This surprised Lin Yi. Yu Bing didn't look like a coward at all. Yesterday, when Zhang Naipeo was so powerful, Yu Bing still wanted to stand up for him, but Lin Yi stopped him with a glance. Today, someone was slapping his face in front of everyone, and he didn't react at all. What was going on? After slapping Yu Bing twice, Nian clapped his hands nonchalantly. He turned to Qikuan, Qijio, and Yushan. Let's go, I'm starving to death. Listening to this trash is so annoying. Lin Yi hesitated, but he didn't stop him. Lin Yi didn't know what Yu Bing was planning. Why did Yu Bing choose to endure it? Was there something he didn't know? Since Yu Bing was enduring it, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't act rashly. To be continued. School Beauty's Personal Master 1483. School Beauty's Personal Master Chapter 1483. Slapping Face Slapping completed. Chapter 1486. School Beauty's Personal Master 1484. School Beauty's Personal Master Chapter 1484. Shocked Feng Nian didn't even look back when he left, but Yushan turned around and laughed. Big bro, how was it? Good, right? You're not that good, are you? In front of Nian bro, you're just trash. Ha ha. At this time, Yu Bing's face flashed with anger, but he didn't reply, and this made Lin Yi even more confused. It wasn't until the four of them were far away that Yu Bing raised his clenched fist unwillingly. What kind of evil arts is this? I can't even fight back? Could it be that he's from an ancient sect? Is he using the legendary realm? Yu Bing was angry, but he didn't chase after him immediately. He wasn't an idiot, and the opponent's arts were so strange. He hadn't heard of any hidden noble house or normal sect having such a powerful arts. Combined with Zhang Naipeo's arts he saw yesterday, Yu Bing was pretty sure that Feng Nian was from an ancient sect or an ancient noble house. Plus, the arts he used were similar to the legendary realm that his grandpa had mentioned before, but this kind of realm was extremely difficult to practice, and it was limited by the body's constitution. Not everyone could practice it, and so Yu Bing didn't think too much of it. But now that he had experienced it himself, he knew how scary it was. At that moment, his body seemed to be bound by something. He couldn't move at all. He had a body full of anger, but he couldn't vent it. If someone really used this mental cultivation method against an enemy, wouldn't that be the same as standing there waiting for death? It was too scary. What? That person is from an ancient sect? Lin Yi didn't quite understand what Yu Bing was talking about. What's a realm? Do you know? Lin Yi before. When he slapped me, I couldn't move at all, and I couldn't fight back. It was like I was tied down by an invisible force, and I was paralyzed. Yu Bing smiled bitterly. If I'm not wrong, that person is from an ancient noble house or an ancient sect. People like that. We can't afford to mess with them. Forget it. Just like Zhang Naipeo yesterday, the practitioner's arts they practice are too powerful. To us, He's someone we can only look up to. He's not even on the same level. Another person from the ancient era? Linny frowned. No wonder he felt that Yu Bing's reaction was weird, so this was it. I thought that. You didn't make a move because there's something you're hiding. Otherwise, I would have made a move. It's fortunate that you didn't make a move. Otherwise, you'd get beaten up too. Yu Bing sighed. Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. It's not like a hidden house getting slapped in the face by an ancient house is anything to be proud of. We can't get revenge anyways, we can only blame it on our bad luck. You can't do it? Linny faintly asked, looking pensive. Of course I can't. Right. How are you? Are you still suffering? You look pretty good, haven't you? You've thought it through? Yu Bing waved his hand and stopped talking about his own matters, asking about Linny instead. I'm fine. Let's talk in your room. Linny pointed at the room behind Yu Bing. There weren't many people in the hallway of the inn, but in order to prevent eavesdroppers, it was better to talk in the room. All right, let's go. Yu Bing nodded and went back to his room. He wanted to tell Linny about his discussion with his sister so that Linny could be at ease. He didn't know if Linny would give up on himself if he left like this. That wasn't what he and his sister wanted to see. Linny followed Yu Bing into the room and closed the door. It seems like this test is going to be fun. A Zhang Naipeo and that ancient noble house guy, we have opponents. We? Yu Bing paused. You still want to participate in the test? Are you kidding me? Linny, you may have lost all your strength, but you don't have to force yourself, and you don't have to give up on yourself. I've already told Ning about your situation. Don't worry, we'll help you. Did you tell her? Linny couldn't help but smile bitterly. I've been thinking about it, and I decided that I can't hide this from her. She'll be worried, but I need her help to get you some medicine from her house. Yu Bing said. Don't worry, with me and Ning here, we'll help you get back on the path of training. You talk too fast. Linny shrugged, not sure if he should laugh or cry. I told you yesterday. It's fine, I don't need medicine. Linny, with our relationship, you don't have to be so courteous, you don't have to be so polite. Yu Bing insisted. You and I. What's there to be polite about? We're old friends, Linny said. But I really don't need it. I don't need to go back on the path of training. What are you talking about? Yu Bing paused after hearing Linny's words. Could it be that Zhang Naipeo used your chi to break through, and you got stimulated? Linny didn't have a choice. He channeled the art of dragon mastery, unleashing his strength as a mystic late phase. Facts speak louder than words, and Lin Yi knew that no matter what he said, Yu Bing would think that he was just comforting him. He'd let him see it for himself. Enemy? Feeling Lin Yi's channeling of his arts, Yu Bing subconsciously thought that it was an enemy, but he came to his senses the next second. His eyes widened as he looked at Lin Yi as if he'd seen a ghost. You. How did you, mystic late phase? I've broken through, Lin Yi said as he retracted his chi back into his body and stopped his practitioner's arts. You're not crippled? You can still break through? Yu Bing felt like he'd heard a fairy tale. Didn't you become a cripple yesterday? I only lost my strength yesterday, and I'm back after a nap, Lin Yi said. I told you yesterday that I'm fine. I'm really fine. Fuck. Yu Bing suddenly felt that the ancient sects and noble houses were nothing compared to this guy in front of him. This guy was the real deal. He lost his strength yesterday, and now he broke through. Grandpa said that Xiaoning was the hope of House Yu's glory, and if Xiaoning really pulled Lin Yi over to House Yu's side, that would be amazing. Was this guy a cockroach? He was heavily injured yesterday, and now he was fine? To be continued. School Beauty's Personal Master 1484. School Beauty's Personal Master Chapter 1484. Shocking update complete. Chapter 1487. School Beauty's Personal Master 1485. School Beauty's Personal Master Chapter 1485. Rumors and Rumors article from %. Don't let Zhang Naipeo know about this first, we'll give him a surprise later. Of course. Yu Bing quickly nodded. You scared me to death. I thought you were just comforting me yesterday, but now I know that you're telling the truth. It's all right, let's go out for a meal and get some information. Lin Yi wanted to know more about Feng Nitian so that he could prepare a countermeasure during the test, but this guy's practitioner's arts were just too strange. With me looking like this, wouldn't I be a joke if I went out? Yu Bing pointed at his swollen cheeks and shook his head with a bitter smile. Lin Yi channeled the art of dragon mastery and touched Yu Bing's face. All right, can we go now? All right? Yu Bing paused. He was about to say that he was joking when he realized that his face wasn't hurting anymore. He quickly touched it subconsciously and was surprised to find that his cheeks had returned to normal. There was no sign of swelling at all. I'm done. Lin Yi nodded with certainty. I'm going crazy. Yu Bing looked at Lin Yi, his eyes glowing green. You actually have a healing type of qi? How is that possible? Isn't that something only people from House Sun can do? Are you related to House Sun? Related? I don't think so. If I had to say, House Sun's Sun Jingyi is my half-lover, Lin Yi said. Half-lover? Yu Bing paused but didn't ask. He didn't understand why Lin Yi could accept Sun Jingyi, could accept other girls, but not Ning. Was it really because of the resistance from his own family? It's fake. Lin Yi smiled. In name only. Let's go out for a meal. All right. Yu Bing took a deep breath. In the past 2 days he had seen all kinds of ruthless people one after another. His heart couldn't take it and was about to explode. Yesterday's Zhang Naipeo, today's Feng Nitian, in Yu Bing's eyes they were all people he could only look up to, but in front of him. However, there was still a ruthless person who was even more powerful than them that he had almost overlooked. It was only now that Yu Bing sighed at his sister's sharp eyesight. His father was an idiot. A person like Lin Yi was simply an existence that couldn't be roped in even with a lantern, but his father and grandfather just didn't like him. One had to know how popular the practitioners of the Sun family in the secular world were. Not to mention the aristocratic families in the secular world, even the hidden aristocratic families and sects wanted to form a marriage alliance with the Sun family. There was once an ancient sect that formed a marriage alliance with the Sun family. What they valued was none other than the Sun family's ability to heal and transmit spiritual qi. But does Lin Yi also know how to heal? But is Lin Yi's healing ability like House Sun's, only effective on one person? With that thought, Yu Bing couldn't help but ask. Lin Yi, your healing ability, can it be used on other people too? Yes, it can be used on animals too. Lin Yi nodded. It can be used on animals too. Yu Bing took in a cold breath, a glimmer of hope flashing in his eyes. He quickly asked, What about ancient spirit beasts? Does it work? I think so. Lin Yi nodded curiously and looked at Yu Bing confused. Why do you ask? When Xiao Ning was young, she saved an injured ancient spirit beast, and it's been in House Yu's care ever since. Many doctors and pharmacists have seen it, but they couldn't cure it. Luckily, ancient spirit beasts have a very strong life force. As long as the qi in its body doesn't run out, it'll be able to sustain its life. I've been taking care of it all these years. Yu Bing explained. I really hope to find a doctor who can cure this ancient spirit beast. Can you help me out? Lin Yi didn't think that his casual action would cause so much trouble. If Lin Yi agreed to Yu Bing's request, then he would have to come into contact with Yu Ning. But could Lin Yi say no? Not to mention the fact that Yu Bing was the one who suggested it, and that it was just a small thing for Lin Yi to do, just from the fact that he was injured and what Yu Ning told Yu Bing to say to him. Lin Yi couldn't just stand by and watch. Putting aside the fact that Yu Bing was the one who brought it up, it was a piece of cake for Lin Yi. Just from the fact that he was injured and what Yu Ning told Yu Bing to say to him, Lin Yi couldn't just stand by and watch. There will be a chance. Yu Bing understood what Lin Yi meant and smiled. There will be a chance. Yu Bing understood Lin Yi's meaning and smiled. The two walked out of the inn and walked to the nearest food stall. Many of the participants were eating here, and the fact that Lin Yi was crippled by Nai Peo yesterday wasn't a secret. So, when Lin Yi appeared, everyone looked at him with all sorts of expressions. Some were sympathetic, some were mocking, some were gloating, and some were wondering why Lin Yi didn't hurry back to think of a solution. Why did he continue staying here? But Lin Yi didn't care about all this. He found a table and sat down with Yu Bing. He ordered a few dishes and started eating. These people were just curious, and after Lin Yi and Yu Bing started eating, they didn't care about them anymore. They all went back to their previous topic, but some of the people at the table saw Lin Yi, and the topic changed to Zhang Naipeo and Feng Niyan. Did you see that? That Zhang Naipeo from the ancient sects, you can't mess with him. That Lin Yi is the result of messing with him. A disciple of a hidden house said softly. Although his voice was soft, it didn't escape Yu Bing and Lin Yi's ears. They were all practitioners, and they were so close to each other. Naturally, they could hear it clearly. But Lin Yi and Yu Bing pretended like they didn't hear anything. They were here to get information, and they didn't talk much. They just kept eating. Yeah, that Zhang Naipeo is very strong, but I heard that Feng Niyan is just as strong as him. His skills are just too strong. Another disciple from a small sect added. I heard that he has a field. Just now, did you guys see it? That Yu Bing beside Ling Yi, he was slapped in the face by Feng Nitian's field. He couldn't fight back, it was just too strong. That Feng Niyan is also from the ancient house Feng. He's on the same level as the ancient sections. Us hidden houses and normal sects can't mess with him. The other person also sighed and said, during the trial, we should hide. If we meet these two people, we will only be waiting for death. Yeah, we can hide if we can't mess with them. However, those two over there are really unlucky. They've offended two ancient-level enemies in one go. Unless they don't continue to participate in the trials, otherwise, in the trials. TSK, the results can be imagined. The disciple from the hidden family who had spoken before said with a bit of pity. To be continued, School Beauty's Personal Expert 1485, School Beauty's Personal Expert Text Chapter 1485, Gossips has been updated. Chapter 1488. School Beauty's Personal Master 1486, School Beauty's Personal Master Chapter 1486. Good news. Here's a piece of good news. This article came from Percent. Yeah, how unlucky. But there's nothing we can do about it. We can't afford to mess with ancient people. The disciple of the small sect who spoke before also nodded in agreement. However, in my opinion, these things don't have much to do with us. As long as we are careful, it'll be fine. We can't care about what happens to others. Yes. Another person nodded in agreement. After the meal, Lin Yi and Yu Bing stood up and left. They had more or less gotten the information they wanted. The person who was with Yushan this morning was called Feng Niyan, from the ancient house Feng. His ultimate skill was heaven-defying arts, able to freeze people for around 3 minutes. What do you think? Do you have a plan? Yu Bing was very worried after hearing their discussion. Now that the grudge had been formed, he believed that if Zhang Naipeo met Lin Yi in the test, he wouldn't hold back at all. He would kill him. And since Yushan was with Feng Niyan, he would be in danger as well. Yushan would probably use Feng Niyan to get rid of him, clearing the way for him to become the young master. If that happened, then he and Lin Yi would have offended the two strongest people in the test. He couldn't help but worry. Lin Yi was amazing as well, but 2 fists couldn't fight against 4 hands, and Feng Nitian's arts couldn't be easily countered. At least Yu Bing didn't know how to do it. This was a secret art passed down from the ancient times. It wasn't something a normal practitioner's arts could defend against. The feeling of being bound by Niyan was still fresh in Yu Bing's mind. He really couldn't move at all, and if Niyan wanted to kill him, he would have just stood there and waited for his death. Are you alright? Lin Yi said faintly. I haven't thought of a complete solution yet. High-quality text first, all below. But we can take the risk, or we can strike first. On the other hand, Lin Yi felt more at ease after hearing about Feng Nitian's situation. Zhang Naipeo and Feng Niyan were good, they both had some achievements in the underhanded ways, but when it came to fighting face to face, John Nipeo and Fong Nian were the same. They might not have any advantage. In that case, Lin Yi could play to his strengths and avoid his weaknesses. As long as he could find a way to overcome their consummate skills, it would be much easier to deal with them. Although Lin Yi had no solution for the time being, Lin Yi felt that finding a solution was only a matter of time. It was not a difficult task. That's good. Yu Bing placed all his hopes on Lin Yi. If Lin Yi had a way, then that would be great. Although Yu Bing said that, he was still a little worried. But no matter what, he couldn't back out from this test. That would mean that he had lost to Yushan, and even his grandfather and father would not be able to support him. It seemed that the road ahead was exceptionally dangerous. Lin Yi could tell that Yu Bing was worried. Before they went back to their rooms, Lin Yi patted Yu Bing's shoulder. He consoled. Don't worry. When the time comes, it's fine if these two people from the ancient era don't provoke me. If they do, don't blame me for being impolite. I'll make them come here standing and send them back in wheelchairs. Ha, good. Have you this sentence? I'm relieved. Yu Bing was relieved after hearing that. Thinking about Lin Yi's miracles, maybe a miracle really could happen. Lin Yi went back to his room to think of a plan. Yu Bing, on the other hand, returned to his room. He immediately dialed his sister Yu Ning's phone. Brother! How is he? Is he okay? Yu Ning and Yu Bing were the same, they didn't sleep well the whole night. Yu Ning was thinking about how to get the medicine from the family, and she was also worried about Lin Yi's safety. She kept her phone close to her hand, waiting for her brother to contact her. So at the moment when the phone rang, Yu Ning answered it. You picked up already? Yu Bing paused, but immediately understood what his sister was thinking. He smiled. Ning, you look worried? And, brother, why are you still joking at a time like this? Yu Ning wasn't happy, but it was her brother, so she couldn't get angry. Haha, are you joking? I don't have the mood to joke with you. Yu Bing stopped teasing Yu Ning and said directly. Sister, let me tell you a good news. What good news? I don't want to hear it first. Yu Ning said. Brother, tell me first, how is he? Sister, you're too worried. You really don't want to hear the good news? The good news is about Lin Yi. Yu Bing smiled. Lin Yi? His good news? Isn't he? Yu Ning frowned slightly, and her face suddenly lit up. There's a turn for the better? Sister, your eyesight is really out of this world. I have to admire you, you're really good at reading people. Yu Bing sighed. Do you know? Yesterday, Lin Yi was crippled, really crippled, he had no strength left in him. I could feel that he was even weaker than a normal person, but this morning he came to find me, and guess what? What, he recovered half. Yu Ning made a bold guess, although she felt that it was impossible. She had never heard of anyone recovering half of their strength in one night. However, her brother had praised Lin Yi before, and even said that she had good eyesight. That must mean that Lin Yi was very strong, so Yu Ning made a bold guess. Although when her brother said that her eyesight was out of this world, Yu Ning blushed a little, but now she couldn't care about these details. No, guess again. Yu Bing shook his head to keep her in suspense. Then, he recovered a third? Yu Ning lowered her assumption. After all, her previous guess was too bold. Sister, can't you guess more boldly? Is your eyesight that bad? Think about it, that's out of this world. Yu Bing shook his head. Could it be that he recovered to his original state? That's not possible, right? Really? Yu Ning exclaimed in surprise. He didn't recover to his original state, Yu Bing said. I knew it. If he could recover in one night, he wouldn't be human. Yu Ning patted her chest, she was shocked by herself. I haven't finished yet, Yu Bing said. He didn't recover to his original state, he broke through. He was at the peak of the middle phase before, but this morning he's at the late phase. Ah? After Yu Ning heard it, she was so shocked that she almost threw the phone in her hand. She held the phone tightly, and her breathing became a little rough. Brother, are you telling the truth? You're not lying to me? Why would I lie to you? Don't you trust your own eyesight? Yu Bing couldn't help but smile bitterly when he heard his sister's excited voice. In fact, he was shocked when he first heard the news. To be continued. School Beauty's Personal Expert 1486. School Beauty's Personal Expert Chapter 1486. Good news. Let me tell you a piece of good news. Chapter 1489. School Beauty's Personal Expert 1487. School Beauty's Personal Expert Chapter 1487. Ice Palace. Someone from the Ice Palace. This article came from %. That's unbelievable, he broke through. Yu Ning's face flashed a blush of happiness. Sure enough, her brother said that her eyesight was not bad. It seemed that it was really not bad. She knew he wasn't simple, he wasn't weaker than her at all. Yeah, I'm telling you the good news, you don't have to worry anymore, Yu Bing said. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up first. The plan is cancelled as well. Okay. Yu Ning nodded happily. As for the ancient houses and sects, Yu Bing didn't talk too much with his sister. He realized that he was worrying too much. Lin Yi was fine before, but he was so worried that his sister was worried as well. So this time, Yu Bing learned his lesson and told Yu Ning about what happened here after the test was over. Who knows, maybe he and Lin Yi would be able to pass the test without a hitch. Yang Qiqi came to the inn and stayed in her room. Her personality was like that, very cold, and she didn't want to make friends. Her goal here was simple, to participate in the test. So she didn't know what happened these 2 days. She didn't even know that Lin Yi was here. At around 8 o'clock in the evening, a loud and clear voice suddenly came from outside the inn. High-quality text first, all at %. All students participating in the Ice Palace test, attention! The registration period has ended, and we will begin the registration process now. All students of the inn, please gather at the plaza in front of the inn in 10 minutes to accept the registration from the Ice Palace messengers and pay the deposit. We will not wait after the deadline. The voice was full of energy, indicating that the speaker was very strong. But those who were familiar with the voice should be able to recognize it. The person who shouted was actually the owner of the inn. Earth class. This startled Lin Yi. He didn't think that the owner of the inn was an Earth class, and when he stayed in the inn before, in other words, this old man had used some sort of secret technique to conceal his cultivation. This surprised Lin Yi. It seemed that the ancient sects were not on the same level as the hidden houses. None of the ancient sects were simple. Lin Yi quickly left the room, and Yu Bing's door opened at the same time. The two looked at each other and prepared to go downstairs together. At that moment, Yang Qiqi walked out from a room not too far away. She paused when she saw Lin Yi. Qiqi didn't understand why was this guy here again. She couldn't help but curse her unluck. Seeing him reminded her of the time when he saw her body, but she couldn't beat him. She couldn't kill him, not to mention that he was her savior. This troubled her even more. Yang Qiqi didn't think about it when she didn't see Lin Yi. She even tried to forget about Lin Yi. After all, it was like a nightmare to her. But now that she saw Lin Yi, she couldn't help but remember those unhappy memories. She frowned and turned her head away, not looking at Lin Yi anymore. At the same time, Zhao Qikuan, Zhao Qijiu, Yushan, and Feng Nian walked out as well. Zhao Qikuan saw Lin Yi and was as passionate as ever. He didn't seem to be affected by what happened in the morning. Brother Lin Yi, are you still going to join the test? Because Lin Yi was going downstairs with Yu Bing, naturally, he was going to sign up for the test. This surprised Zhao Qikuan. Could Lin Yi still participate in the test in his current condition? Without strength, wouldn't it be suicide to participate in the test? Yeah. Lin Yi nodded. He didn't explain much. On the other hand, when Qiqi heard Zhao Qikuan call Lin Yi, a strange look flashed across her eyes. Lin Yi? He was called Lin Yi? How could he have this name? Wasn't he called Lin Yi? Yes, it must be because he was called Lin Yi. He didn't want people to know his real name, so he changed his name to Lin Yi. Let's just say it, high-quality text first, all are %. Lin Yi was such a good name, how could he call himself that? But this guy was really despicable, calling himself that person's name. If there was a chance, she wouldn't let him go. How dare he use Ai's name? Some people really don't fear death. Naipeo's voice rang. He saw Lin Yi as well, even he didn't think that Lin Yi would still be here. He was a cripple now, what was the point of staying here? But for a cripple like Lin Yi, Naipeo didn't care anymore. Even if he did, he'd do it in front of Liang Bro. If he killed Lin Yi here, Liang Bro wouldn't be happy, but he didn't forget to make fun of Lin Yi. Thank you for the chi you trained so hard, haha, it helped me break through to Mystic Late Phase, tsk, it feels so good. You're welcome, Lin Yi said faintly. Ha ha. Naipeo started laughing crazily. Naipeo bro, you're amazing! Congratulations! Feng Nikian congratulated. He and Naipeo belonged to the ancient class, and there was no need for them to fight each other here. After all, they were the strongest here, and if they were to fight, the hidden houses and small sects would think that it was a dog-eat-dog fight, and that wouldn't be interesting at all. Plus, Feng Nitian's goal was to become the head of House Feng, and Naipeo's goal was to become the disciple of the Grand Elder. It was good for them to get to know more powerful people. And so, other than the first few who were sucking up to them, the two of them didn't accept any other disciples. If they all joined their side, then the test would lose its meaning, and it would become a fight between the two of them. That wasn't something they wanted to see. And they had agreed during breakfast that they wouldn't interfere with each other's teams, they'd work together to steal points from other teams. Nikian bro is amazing as well, I don't think I'll get a higher score than you in this test, Naipeo said with a smile. What he said was the truth. Nikian only needed to use one move, and he'd be able to bind the others. He didn't even need to lift a finger, and he'd be able to steal their points. But Naipeo wasn't worried at all, he didn't even need to lift a finger, and he'd be able to scare the others into giving up their points. Otherwise, they'd become trash like Lin Yi. Hearing the two big shots flattering each other, Lin Yi's lips curled into a cold smile. They still wanted to do well in the test? Just wait and see. Lin Yi and Yu Bing walked down the stairs side by side, ignoring the people behind them. Yang Qiqi, on the other hand, followed closely behind Lin Yi. Zhuang Niapeo, on the other hand, couldn't help but humphed coldly when he saw Yang Qiqi. To be continued. School Beauty's Personal Expert 1487, School Beauty's Personal Expert Chapter 1487, Ice Palace's Personal Expert. The people from Ice Palace had finished updating. Chapter 1490. Zhuan Niapeo had always had his eyes on Qiqi, but Naipeo didn't seem to be interested in her at all, so he couldn't make a decision on his own. He could only smile coldly and think about how he would open the door for her during the test. Although the owner had given them a time limit of 10 minutes, none of the participants dared to waste any time. It wasn't even 5 minutes when they all arrived at the plaza in front of the inn. Lin Yi and Yu Bing found a spot first and sat cross-legged on the ground. The other disciples came over and copied Lin Yi and Yu Bing, finding their own spots to sit down. The owner of the inn, on the other hand, was standing straight on the flower altar in front of the square, his Earth-class late-phase peak power fully displayed, not hiding anything at all. Beside him was a woman dressed in white, around 10 or so years of age, but Lin Yi's intuition and years of medical experience told him that this woman was definitely older than that. She should be at least 30 years old, but she took good care of herself. Was it because of her training in the heart? Or was it because she had entered Sky Class, reducing the aging of her face? But entering Sky Class didn't mean that one could regain their youthfulness. After entering Sky Class, one's face was fixed at the moment before they entered Sky Class. This meant that this girl had broken through to Sky Class at 18? Was that even possible? Or perhaps the ancient noble houses had pills that could keep one's face forever, like the face pill. Lin Yi had seen this recipe in Zhang Liju's notes before, but while it could keep one's face forever, it couldn't extend one's lifespan. Even so, it was still a golden class 4th level pill, and it was extremely difficult to make. The success rate was very low, and if the Ice Palace had it, then it wouldn't be easy. Soon, all the disciples who had come to participate in the trial had arrived. They all sat down with their legs crossed, waiting for the Ice Palace envoy to speak. The woman nodded indifferently when she saw that everyone had arrived and said, "Since everyone is here, then let's begin. Let me introduce myself. I'm Xiao Qing, the maid-servant of the Ice Palace's palace master. I'm also the emissary who will be bringing you to the Ice Palace's territory for the trial." Although this woman was just a servant, no one dared to look down on her. Looking at the way the inn-owner was treating her with respect, it was easy to tell. The inn-owner was an Earth-class late-phase peak, half a step into Sky-class, but he was being so respectful to this servant. One could only imagine her position in the Ice Palace. The palace master's maidservant. If the palace master was someone with absolute authority in the Ice Palace, then her maidservant was probably on the same level as the elders. "You can call her emissary Qing or Elder Qing." The inn-owner reminded all the trial challengers present to prevent them from calling Little Blue the emissary and causing a lot of trouble. Of course, they weren't idiots. If they couldn't even see through this, then they weren't fit to participate in this trial. These people were all smart people. How could they not understand this? Most of you are from hidden aristocratic families and sects, but there are a few who are special. They are from ancient aristocratic families and ancient sects. Qing paused and glanced at the disciples present. She continued, "But in the eyes of the Ice Palace, there is no special treatment. We will treat everyone the same and will not give special treatment. Don't think that you have any sense of superiority, otherwise the Ice Palace will stop your right to participate and send out a notice to the ancient level. Your conduct will be reported and you will be listed as a member of the Black Viper sect." Other than Naipeo and Nikian, many of the hidden houses and sect's disciples were in an uproar after hearing Qing's words. Wasn't this Ice Palace a little too much? They didn't even give the ancient house Feng and the sect any face at all. Naipeo and Nidian, on the other hand, knew that the Ice Palace was like a giant dam in the ancient sections. They didn't participate in the battle against the Day and Day sect back then. If they did, then the Day and Day sect wouldn't be doing so well right now. The Ice Palace belonged to a relatively neutral force, drifting between the righteous and evil factions. The Ice Palace's people rarely participated in those struggles. Instead, they focused on cultivation. This was also the reason why the Ice Palace had so many heaven-rank experts. "Don't worry, Elder Qing, since Brother Feng and I are in the Ice Palace's territory, we will follow the rules." Naipeo stood up and cupped his fist. "Yes, Brother Naipeo is right, we are here to participate in the trial, and we must follow the rules like everyone else," Nitian said. "Very good." Qing nodded and continued. "Now I'll briefly explain the rules of the trial. If you don't accept it, then you can leave. If you don't, then you'll have to pay the deposit. Tomorrow morning, the trial will officially begin. Shaoli, read out the rules of the trial." "Yes, Elder Qing." The inn-owner hurriedly nodded his head, as he announced the rules of the trial in a clear voice. "The duration of this trial is 3 days. The trial location is the Ice Palace's outer perimeter, the Ice Snow Spirit Mountain. During the trial, you will be required to traverse various perilous situations, and harvest various herbs. Every time you obtain a herb, you will be rewarded with corresponding points. The points will be automatically assessed according to the quality of the herb. Of course, you can fight each other for points as well, but remember, you can hurt people, but you can't put people in danger. If you break this rule, you will be severely punished by the Ice Palace. This rule wasn't present in the previous trials. In the past trials, everyone had their own destiny, and the Ice Palace wouldn't interfere. But this time, it was different. Because there were disciples from ancient noble houses and ancient sects joining the trials, the Ice Palace added this rule for the sake of safety. 1. They were afraid that the disciples of the ancient noble houses and ancient sects would act recklessly and kill the disciples of the hidden houses and normal sects. Secondly, they were afraid that the disciples of the hidden aristocratic families and ancient sects would band together and attack the disciples of the ancient sects and ancient aristocratic families. This would increase the conflict, and the Ice Palace would form a grudge with the hidden aristocratic families and ancient aristocratic families. In the future, not only would he not be able to continue holding trials to earn money, He would also have to form a grudge with the sect of Tomorrow for Tomorrow and the ancient Phone clan. Chapter 1491. As soon as this rule was announced, all the challengers were very surprised. This was because this rule was different from what they had heard from their elders at home. However, most of them were very happy after hearing it. At least no matter what, they would be able to keep their lives and would not lose their lives. The stronger ones didn't mind, but there were many early phase mystic class participants here, and they were a bit worried. This rule made them feel better. However, a lot of people still turned their attention to Lin Yi, suspicious. Why did it seem like the rules were made for this guy? He didn't have any strength, and was even weaker than a normal person. If he went to the trial, people wouldn't dare do anything to him. If they used too much strength, they could kill him. If he failed, not only would he not be able to participate in the test, but he'd also be breaking the rules of the Ice Palace, bringing trouble to themselves. A lot of people had the same thought. If Lin Yi was going to participate in the test, they should stay away from him, and not let him stick to them. In addition, the entire process of the trial will be recorded on the electronic card that I will send to you later. Your points will also be displayed on the electronic card, the owner said. Including during the trial, if the medicinal herbs in your hands are snatched by others, then the points will be transferred accordingly. But be careful, don't damage the ingredients because of fighting. Not only will you not get any points, but you will also get points deducted. Card? Isn't it jade? A descendant of a family had clearly heard that the recording device in the trial was a piece of jade and not an electronic card, so he subconsciously asked. Jade is something used in the past, and with the advancement of technology, the recording devices of the Ice Palace have naturally been changed to technology. The cost of a jade to record information is too high, the owner explained. Alright, is there anything else you don't understand? If there's no doubt, then I'll register you and collect the security deposit. No. Everyone shook their heads. What a joke. Everyone was here to participate in the trial. How could they give up just because of a small change in the rules? Wouldn't that be a waste of time? Alright, then let's start from this row. One by one, come up and register. Swipe your card to pay the deposit, the owner said to the closest participants. Yes. The trial taker at the front got up and walked over. He filled in his information on the information booklet given by the innkeeper. Just as he was about to swipe his card to pay the deposit, the innkeeper waved his hand. Give me your hand, I want to test your strength, the innkeeper said lightly. Can I just circulate my cultivation method? Do I even need to stretch out my hand? The challenger asked in surprise. Lin Yi, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes. He'd never seen this participant before. Evidently, he'd been hiding in his room ever since he'd arrived, and hadn't come out until the owner called for everyone to gather. However, that wasn't what caught Lin Yi's attention. It was the fact that this person was an Earth-class early-phase spiritual practitioner. He had already exceeded the requirements of the trial. No wonder he was so nervous when the innkeeper wanted to check his strength. No need, give me your hand, the owner said faintly. The trial taker hesitated, but still reached out his hand. He was secretly channeling his chi and suppressing his strength to mystic late-phase peak. He didn't reveal his Earth-class early-phase strength. I told you there's no need. What kind of chi are you channeling? The owner looked coldly at the trial taker and scanned his registration information. Gone Mountain Sect disciple Wu Jingdao, pretending to be a mystic late-phase peak, has been verified to be an Earth-class early phase. Your right to participate in the trial is revoked. The Gone Mountain Sect will be blacklisted, and will not be allowed to participate in the Ice Palace trial for the next 10 years. AI. When the Gone Mountain Sect disciple called Wu Jingdao heard the words of the owner, he immediately revealed a dejected expression. He originally thought that hiding his strength wouldn't be discovered. In the end, he was found out when he registered, and even his own sect was banned from participating in the trials for 10 years. But of course, he didn't dare argue with the Ice Palace people. Without another word, he ran to the parking lot, ready to go back to his sect. Everyone present was shocked at this, including Lin Yi. This owner was quite something indeed. Not only was he able to hide his strength, but he could also sense someone else's true strength through a handshake. Although Lin Yi had this ability as well, Lin Yi had trained in the art of dragon mastery. He had a golden finger. This owner was just a servant of the Ice Palace. How could he have this ability? Is there anyone else hiding their strength? If you leave now, I won't hold your sects and families accountable. Otherwise, when my results come out, your families and sects will also be banned from participating in the Ice Palace's trial for 10 years. The owner looked at everyone present and shouted. This time, a few of the disciples stood up and shook their heads bitterly as they walked to the parking lot. Evidently, these people had been hiding their strength. Lin Yi looked at them and was a bit surprised there was an Earth-class mid-phase here. Lin Yi couldn't check out their strength one by one, so he was quite shocked by what he saw. No more? Then continue, but if there is someone else mixed in, don't blame me for being impolite. After the owner finished speaking, he pointed to the nearest challenger in front of him and said, It's your turn. Yes. This person was Naipeo's follower, Zhuang Niapeo. He walked up to the owner respectfully, and registered his information before extending his hand. Yes, Mystic Mid-Phase Peak. The owner nodded and looked at his information. Hidden House Zhuang Niapeo, you can go to Elder Qing and swipe your card. Yes. Zhuang Niapeo quickly nodded and took out a bank card to swipe it. After that, the rest of the participants went to register and swipe their cards. But Lin Yi noticed one thing: there were freelancers amongst them, meaning that they didn't belong to any sects or houses. The owner, however, didn't seem to have any qualms with people like this. As long as their strength was up to par, they'd be allowed to pay. Chapter 1492. In a blink of an eye, it was Pai Jishan and Pai Jihai's turn. Pai Jishan went up to register his information and then extended his hand, waiting for the owner to test his strength. He was the first physical practitioner, but he wasn't sure if the owner could test a physical practitioner's strength. Mystic Late Phase Peak Physical Strength. The owner didn't fail the test just because Pai Jishan was a physical practitioner. He quickly reported his strength. Go pay the deposit. Yes. Pai Jishan passed the card to Elder Qing, but kept giving Pai Jihai looks. Pai Jihai was an Earth-class early-phase physical practitioner, so there was no way he could pass the test. So Pai Jishan wanted him to leave as soon as possible. Previously, Pai Jihai didn't stand up because Pai Jishan wanted to be lucky. He wasn't sure if the owner could test the strength of a physical master, so he wanted to be the first to test it. If the owner couldn't, then Pai Jihai would come up as well. If he could, then Pai Jihai would quickly return home. Pai Jihai got Pai Jishan's signal, so he got up to leave, but was stopped by the owner. Where are you going? I'm going to give up. I'm not going to the test anymore. Pai Jihai jumped. You're not going to participate? Why? The owner asked coldly. I'm not feeling well. Pai Jihai's heart was pounding. The hidden house Pai was powerful in front of normal houses, but in front of an ancient sect, they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Not feeling well? Come here, the owner said. Did I say you could leave? Pai Jihai didn't dare disobey the owner, and he couldn't run. In front of an Earth-class late-phase peak, what was an Earth-class early phase like him? Plus, he couldn't run away forever. He didn't need to investigate his identity to know that he'd drag House Pai down with him. So Pai Jihai hesitated, but still turned around and walked back. Which family are you from? The owner asked. Hidden House Pai. Pai Jihai said honestly. Give me your hand, the innkeeper shouted. This is... Although unwilling, Pai Jihai had no choice but to extend his hand and shake the innkeeper's hand. Earth-class early-phase physical power? The Hidden House Pai's qualification is revoked, and you can't participate for the next 10 years. The owner humphed. What about me? Pai Jishan was shocked and quickly asked. Aren't you from the Hidden House Pai? the inn owner asked. Pai Jishan was depressed. If he knew this would happen, he would have asked Pai Jihai to go back. Along the way, he had asked Pai Jihai to hide his strength. In the inn, he didn't reveal any flaws. He wanted to muddle through and shine in the trial. But he didn't expect that he still couldn't pass this strict test. Physical practitioners are weaker than spiritual practitioners by a level, so he's equivalent to a mystic late-phase peak spiritual practitioner? Shishan struggled to explain. Are you deaf? The innkeeper snorted. Did I say that external Earth-rank martial artists could participate? Leave now, don't bring trouble to your hidden house, Pai. I know. Pai Jishan didn't know what to do. Why was he so unlucky? But he didn't dare say anything about the ice palace. He could only say dejectedly, Then my deposit. The deposit is not refundable, it's already been deducted. Qing returned the card to Pai Jishan coldly. What? Jishan didn't think that he wouldn't be able to participate in the trial, and he had to pay 100 million. This was a double loss. Wasn't this too bad? But since the Ice Palace said they wouldn't give it to him, he didn't dare ask any more. He could only leave with Pai Jihai. Ha! The person behind Pai Jihai was Lin Yi. He was the closest, and seeing Pai Jishan's pained expression, he couldn't help but laugh. Lin Yi naturally knew who the hidden house Pai was. To an unfriendly family like this, Lin Yi could only laugh at them. Jishan heard Lin Yi's laughter, and his expression froze. Hatred flashed across his face as he turned to glare at Lin Yi. It's you? That cripple? Very well, Lin Yi, right? I, Pai Jishan, will remember you. We'll meet again. Pai Jishan was furious, but he didn't dare to vent it on the Ice Palace. To him, this unlucky bastard bumped into him, so he wouldn't be courteous anymore. He would find this Lin Yi to vent his anger on. Iso said, Next time we meet, you can buy a coffin. Humph! Pai Jishan laughed coldly. You talk too fast. With the Ice Palace people here, naturally, he didn't dare to do anything to Lin Yi. After laughing coldly, he left with Pai Jihai, but he remembered Lin Yi's face. His hatred with the hidden house Pai couldn't be resolved anymore. His follower Er Guden had killed quite a few of their mouths. Even if this didn't happen, they would still be dead. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of offending House Pai. Don't say anything, you register! The inn owner glanced at Lin Yi, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. He had seen Lin Yi being crippled with his own eyes, and now Lin Yi didn't leave, but instead participated in the trial. This further confirmed the inn owner's previous guess. The person who broke through upstairs was Lin Yi in front of him. Yes. Lin Yi registered his information. His strength was Mystic Late Phase, his sect was Freelancer, and his name was Lin Yi. After looking at Lin Yi's strength, the inn owner was sure that Lin Yi had broken through. He was very curious and troubled. Just how did this guy do it? Of course, these were personal secrets. Even if the Ice Palace was powerful, they didn't have the right to ask about other people's training methods. Give me your hand! The inn owner couldn't wait to confirm Lin Yi's strength. Chapter 1493. The inn owner shook Lin Yi's hand. The next moment, a look of shock appeared on his face. From what he could sense, Lin Yi didn't have any strength at all. He was no different from a normal person. Could it be that he hadn't recovered, and was lying to him? Your strength. The inn owner was about to ask when he suddenly felt the change in Lin Yi's strength. Lin Yi's strength went from 0 at the beginning to Mystic Mid-Phase Peak all of a sudden. Lin Yi could tell from the inn owner's expression that his guess was right. Before he used the art of dragon mastery, his strength was hidden. Even someone like the inn owner couldn't accurately judge his strength. Of course, Lin Yi was just testing it. He wouldn't make things too difficult for the inn owner. After all, he was the one asking for help from the Ice Palace, and if things went sour, how would Lin Yi get the fruit? Plus, Lin Yi's background was questionable to begin with. Lin Yi naturally wouldn't cause any more problems. But in order to test if he could hide his strength, Lin Yi suppressed it to Mystic Mid-Phase Peak, to see if the inn owner could see his full strength. The inn owner was shocked. a strange look flashing across his eyes as he looked at Linny in disbelief. How could it be mid-phase peak? Linny smiled faintly, no longer holding back. In an instant, his strength as a mystic late phase was displayed to the fullest. The inn owner looked at Lin Yi meaningfully, but didn't say anything else. Lin Yi's strength could be suppressed, could be hidden, and had already exceeded the scope of the inn owner's probing. Although he was shocked, this was related to the practitioner's arts, and he couldn't ask about it. This was a taboo in Wuling, and the more ancient a sect was, the more important the rules of Wuling were. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had the right to participate in the trial. Although he could hide his strength, it didn't break any rules. The inn owner announced, "Ling Yi, freelancer, mystic late phase, you can go pay the deposit." "What? Mystic late phase?" Naipeo was the first to yell out. He had sucked Lin Yi dry, and he knew that Lin Yi was now a cripple. He couldn't believe that the inn owner was saying that Lin Yi was a mystic late phase. How was that possible? At the same time, Zhuang Niapeo, Zhuang Niaoqiang, and the others beside Naipeo were all shocked as well. They saw the whole process of Lin Yi becoming a cripple with their own eyes. But how could Lin Yi still be a mystic late phase? Could it be a mistake? Although they had their doubts, they weren't Naipeo, and they didn't have a background like him. They wouldn't dare say anything like that. Li's test, of course, wouldn't be wrong. Do you have any questions? Qing evidently trusted the owner a lot, as she looked at Naipeo faintly. She didn't give him any face just because he was from an ancient sect. That was how the Ice Palace did things. They changed the rules to take care of you guys, and that was already good enough. There was no way they'd give you anything else. No. Naipeo shook his head. What else could he say after what the guy said? Naipeo, on the other hand, looked at Lin Yi hatefully. He didn't know why Lin Yi didn't lose his strength, but he warned coldly. "I don't care if you're a mystic late phase or not, we'll see what happens in this trial." Only Zhang Naipeo would dare say something like that. Anyone else would have been scared of the Ice Palace. Of course, Naipeo knew that he was doing this for Lin Yi, not the Ice Palace. The Ice Palace wouldn't say anything about it. "All right, I was just about to get my revenge." Lin Yi nodded to Naipeo. Naipeo wanted to say something, but Niyin smiled at him. "Do you really need to be angry at someone like that? We'll just cripple him." Those who thought that Lin Yi didn't have any strength now understood that it wasn't that Lin Yi didn't have any strength, but that he had already recovered. Plus, the inn owner was in charge of the test. No one would be able to pass. Wanting to participate in the trial without strength? That was impossible. "You're right." Naipeo nodded. "People like him are like ants. Killing him is just a matter of minutes. Since he's coming to me, that means he's increasing my strength. I'll just turn him into a cripple. I don't believe he'll be able to recover." "That's right," Nitian said enviously. "Brother Naipeo, you're so strong. Leveling up is so easy for you." "That's true," Naipeo said proudly, but his heart was filled with bitterness. Who could understand the pain and bitterness of his own training? "You guys trained while enjoying yourselves, but I had to train while being bitten by poisonous bugs and bees after castrating myself. How could that compare?" Lin Yi looked at these two bragging bastards and smiled coldly. After Lin Yi swiped his card, it was Yu Bing and Yu Shan's turn to test their strength and pay the deposit. The rest of them had a smooth journey as well. No one tried to hide their strength. After collecting everyone's deposits, Little Qing had the innkeeper distribute electronic point cards to everyone. She then said, "Tomorrow morning at 6:30 sharp here, I will lead everyone to the Ice Palace's trial location. Don't wait after the deadline." "Yes," everyone said solemnly. "There's one more thing I have to remind you all, that from the start of the trial to the moment you leave the Ice Palace, nothing is to be leaked. If I find out, you guys will be hunted down by the Ice Palace." Little Qing warned coldly as she glared at the group of people. "Yes," everyone replied. Who would dare try being hunted down by the Ice Palace? Qing didn't say anything else as she turned around and left. In an instant, the strength of a sky-class mid-phase was on full display, making all the disciples gasp in shock. A maidservant of the Ice Palace's palace master was actually at the mid-heaven class. Then, how strong was the palace master? Could she be sky class late phase peak? Of course, they only thought about it in their hearts and didn't dare to speculate. This maid was already so powerful, so the palace master must be even more amazing. Little Qing hadn't gone far yet. If she heard them talking behind her back, what would they do? Chapter 1494. In the ancient times, sky class wasn't everywhere, but there were still quite a few. But if one didn't stand at this height, how would one be able to see all this? Life was like that, like a frog in the well. If one didn't go out, they would never know what the outside world was like. At the parking lot, the Pai brothers and Wu Jingdao, who hadn't left yet, had a shocked expression on their faces. Sky class, mid-phase at that. A maid-servant was even stronger than the elders of the house or sect, and yet she was still a maid-servant. Luckily, they didn't try to defend themselves when they were chased out, otherwise they wouldn't even know how they died. Pai Jishan and Pai Jihai looked at each other, and the two helplessly got in the car, ready to return to the hidden house Pai. They had stayed in the parking lot to see if there was anything they could do, but it seemed like it was no longer possible. It would be good enough if they didn't get punished. Ling Yi! Pai Jishan will never forgive you, just you wait. Jishan was very furious. Not only did he not get to participate in the test, but he also lost 100 million. How unlucky! But he didn't dare point his finger at the Ice Palace, so he could only vent his anger on Lin Yi. That's just a small figure. It's hard to say if he'll make it back alive. He offended Zhang Naipao of the After Re sect and Feng Nian of the ancient house Feng. Even if he doesn't die, he'll be crippled. Jihai said. It's fine, big bro, the test isn't much anymore. I'm already showing signs of breaking through to Earth class early phase peak. Our hidden house Pai has the advantage amongst all the hidden houses, and aren't you about to break through as well? That's true. Jishan nodded. Plus, our advantage over the other houses is that we're united, unlike the other houses that fight and scheme against each other. That's right, I think it's great now. I'm not suited to managing a family's affairs. I like to train, so let Big Brother be the leader and I'll be the assistant. House Pai will be fine for at least 100 years. Pai Jihai nodded. Once I break through to Sky Class, my lifespan will increase, and protecting House Pai for a while longer won't be hard. From this, it could be seen that the two brothers from House Pai were smart and capable of doing big things. However, they made a serious mistake, and that was underestimating Lin Yi's strength. They treated Ling Wan and Lin Yi as two different people. After Little Qing left, the innkeeper waved his hand at everyone and said, "Go back and disperse." Only then did everyone get up and walk towards the inn. All of a sudden, Lin Yi felt a cold light coming from behind him, and he subconsciously turned around to see Yu Shan not far behind him and Yu Bing. His eyes were cold, and when he saw Lin Yi turn around, he turned around and started chatting with Feng Nian. Lin Yi frowned. Yu Shan really wasn't a good person, and he was probably going to do something to Yu Bing in this test. As for why Lin Yi could feel the coldness, it was just an assassin's sixth sense. After returning to the inn, Yu Bing went straight to Lin Yi's room and said worriedly, "Lin Yi, tomorrow's test doesn't look good. But the Ice Palace has a new rule: we can't kill people. This way, we won't be in danger." "This rule?" Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "It's better if it didn't come out at all. It's probably to take care of those two disciples from the ancient noble houses, afraid that something bad might happen to them. I was planning to kill them all in this test." As for Zhang Naipao, Lin Yi didn't have any reason to hold back. This guy was his enemy, and from what he said, he wouldn't rest until one of them was dead. Between him and Pin Liang, there was no way he could resolve the conflict. If that was the case, he might as well use this test to break one of Pin Liang's arms. But now it seemed impossible. The Ice Palace wouldn't allow that to happen. "Ha!" Yu Bing's eyes went wide after hearing Lin Yi's words. "No way? You want to kill them?" Yu Bing was still worried about tomorrow's test, but on Lin Yi's side, he was worried about not being able to kill his enemies. People really were different. "If I don't kill them, We'll be enemies sooner or later, Lenny said faintly. Do you think there's any way to resolve the conflict between you and Feng Nian? He's with Yushan, and he's already your enemy. Sigh. Every house has all sorts of problems. Yu Bing sighed. I know that, so I want to help you get rid of Yushan as well. Lenny smiled. That guy needs a beating. I can't kill him, but at least cripple him so he can't practice anymore. Yu Bing jumped, not expecting Lenny to want to deal with Yushan, and cripple him as well. This suggestion shocked even Yu Bing himself. But, as much as Yu Bing hated Yushan, he was still his brother. He couldn't bring himself to do something like that. He was moved when Lenny suggested this, but after calming down, he felt that he couldn't do it. No! Lenny, you can't do this! After all, he's my cousin, I can't hurt him. Yu Bing shook his head. It's not you, it's me. Lenny pointed at himself. This has nothing to do with you. You can push all the blame on me. Plus, I've been displeased with him for a long time now. But I can't just watch you deal with him. Yu Bing still couldn't convince himself. All right, then can you promise that he won't jump out and cause trouble for us in this test? Lenny asked. I can't. Yu Bing shook his head. Isn't that fine then? He jumped out and wanted to die. Who can he blame? Lenny shrugged and said, I promise you, I won't make the first move. Is that okay? But if you touch him, you'll make House Yu hate you even more, you and Ning. Yu Bing said worriedly. Chapter 1495. You're right. Yu Bing gritted his teeth. I'll try my best. Don't think too much, just leave it to me, Lenny said. Right, do you have confidence in dealing with them? Yu Bing asked. A little, but I need to act according to the situation, around 50%. Lenny said honestly. I've calculated a few possibilities, I hope one of them will work. That's good enough. Yu Bing breathed and relieved. A 50-50 chance of winning was already very good. After all, a fight between two masters of similar strength always had a 50-50 chance of winning. Not to mention that there was a huge difference in strength between him and Lenny right now. Rest early, the test starts tomorrow, Lenny said. All right. Yu Bing nodded and got ready to leave. Sleep here. I'm afraid that Yushan will do something to you at night. This is the last chance to kill you before the test starts. Lenny remembered the coldness in Yushan's eyes and pointed at the bed beside him. What about you? There's only a single bed here? Yu Bing asked. I won't sleep. I can just sit on the sofa and train, Lenny said. Sleep, don't worry about time. I'll wake you up when I see you. All right. Yu Bing nodded, not rejecting him. That night, as Lenny had expected, Yushan and Ian came to the room next to Lin Yi's. Nitian bro, I'm counting on you. You hold him down and I'll make my move, Yushan whispered to Nitian, his eyes filled with lust. No problem. Nitian nodded. Feng Nitian's art consumed a lot of qi, and if it wasn't something important, he wouldn't use it. Plus, there was a limit to the number of times he could use it, but today, he was here to help Yushan fight Yu Bing. The reason wasn't because of Nitian's loyalty, but because Yushan had promised him that once he killed Yu Bing, he'd have the chance to become the head of House Yu. If he became the head of House Yu, he'd make sure that House Yu would become the vassal of the ancient House Feng. House Yu may be a hidden noble house, but they were the strongest hidden noble house with 2 sky-class masters. If he could get House Yu to join House Feng's side, then it would be a huge contribution to Feng Nian. It would become a bargaining chip for him to fight for the position of the head of the house. Originally, Nitian had promised Yushan to kill Yu Bing in the test, but the rules changed. Even if he came from an ancient noble house, he wouldn't dare go against the rules of the Ice Palace test. Although the Ice Palace wouldn't kill him if he went against the rules, they'd talk to the elders of House Feng for sure. Nitian would lose face in front of the elders, and it wouldn't be good for him to become the head of the house. So he had no choice but to do it tonight. The test hadn't started yet, and even if he killed Yu Bing, it wouldn't be against the rules of the Ice Palace. The Ice Palace wouldn't be able to say anything. Yushan took out a small laser ID card decryptor from his pocket and waved it in front of the door. Yu Bing's lock opened with a click. Even if he didn't meet Nitian, he'd be ready to kill Yu Bing in this test. This ID card decryptor was prepared for decrypting the door keys evidently. He brought it from home and didn't buy it here. There was no way he could buy something like this in such a short amount of time. No one? Although Yushan didn't turn on the lights, he could clearly see the situation in the room with the help of the lights from the square outside the window. A cultivator's eyes and ears were better than the average person's, so Yushan could tell with a glance that there was no one in the room. What Yushan could see, Feng Nitian could see as well. There were no cabinets or anything like that in the room, and the bed was sealed with wood as well. It couldn't be hidden under the bed. Is there anyone in the washroom? Nitian asked. Yushan opened the bathroom door and took a look. He shook his head and said, No. Nitian turned on the lights in the room, and this time, he could see more clearly. There was no one in the room. Not here? Nitian was a little disappointed he'd used the arts in vain, and it didn't work. Could it be in Ling Yi's room next door? My cousin and Ling Yi are really close, he always goes there. Yushan guessed. That's possible. Nitian nodded. Then, let's go next door. In for a penny, in for a pound, we'll kill Ling Yi as well? Yushan's eyes flashed with hatred. Nitian bro, your range is 3 meters, and no one can move within 3 meters. Let's kill Ling Yi as well. That won't do. Nitian shook his head after hearing that Yushan wanted to kill Ling Yi as well. Why? Yushan paused. Ling Yi, Zhang Naipeo said that he wanted him dead, and if I do anything to him, I'll be meddling in other people's business. Nitian waved his hand. Besides, I heard that Zhang Naipeo doesn't want to kill Ling Yi directly. He wants to keep him alive for his young bro to do it himself. So if I kill Ling Yi now, I'll be going against Zhang Naipeo. We're helping him. It shouldn't be a big deal, right? Besides, are you scared of Zhang Naipeo, Nitian bro? Yushan said, unwilling to give up. I'm not scared, I just don't want to offend him. Nitian, of course, saw through Yushan's tactics. But he didn't fight back. We're both from the ancient level, there's no point in making enemies. I see. Yushan was disappointed. So we're just going to let it go? Don't worry, I'll take care of it for you in the test. You can't kill people in the test, but crippling them isn't a problem. As long as they're still breathing, it's not against the rules. Crippling them won't be a threat to you, right? Nitian smiled casually. That's true. Yushan relaxed. If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you, Nitian bro. I'll leave Yu Bing to you. Chapter 1496. Feng Nitian didn't touch Lin Yi, not because he was afraid of Lin Yi, but because he was afraid that Lin Yi would retaliate after he killed Yu Bing. He wouldn't know what to do then, and he wouldn't know what to do. If he did, he'd definitely offend Zhang Naipeo's side. This was Zhang Naipeo's grudge, and the disciples of the ancient level were all prideful. They wouldn't allow others to interfere with his grudge with others. If he didn't do anything, wouldn't he be waiting for Lin Yi to attack them? One could say that Feng Nitian had considered everything. He was one of the strong contenders for the head of House Feng, and he wasn't a reckless person. At this moment, Lin Yi and Yu Bing, who were in the room next door, heard the conversation clearly. Yu Bing hadn't slept yet. The test was tomorrow, and he was extremely nervous. He couldn't sleep well at this time, and when he heard the noise at the door, he woke up immediately. Hearing that Yushan wanted to kill him, Yu Bing's face flashed with anger. He didn't think that Yushan would be this cruel. Lin Yi only wanted to cripple Yushan, but Yushan wanted to kill him. You heard that? You're kind, but your cousin isn't, Lin Yi said faintly as he saw the anger on Yu Bing's face. Pho! Yu Bing took a deep breath, as if he had made a big decision. You're right. There are some things that I can't change. Rather than living in fear of being killed by my cousin in the future, I might as well take care of it once and for all. Ha! Lin Yi smiled. You should have thought it through long ago. The night passed peacefully, and the next morning, at 5:30, Lin Yi came back to reality from the training space. He called Yu Bing and went to the washroom to wash up. Because Yu Bing had Linny as his alarm clock, he didn't have to worry about being late for the test. After being woken up by Linny, he quickly washed up and waited with Linny for the people from the Ice Palace to arrive. It was only 6 o'clock, but the plaza in front of the inn was already filled with disciples who had come to participate in the trial. Everyone was waiting for the arrival of the Ice Palace's emissary. Even Zhang Naipao and Feng Niyan didn't dare waste time as they waited with the others. At the peak of the ice mountain, where the Ice Palace was located. This is the name list and information of the participants. Please have a look, Palace Master. Little Qing presented the registration book to a woman in white. This white-robed lady was the Ice Palace mistress. She was the most authoritative figure in the Ice Palace. She took the book from Qing's hands and started flipping through it. She looked from the beginning to the end, looking at everyone's background in great detail. She couldn't help but feel a little disappointed after that, but she still asked, "And Qing, is Yang Qiqi the only girl in this test?" "Yes, Palace Master, and she's also a physical practitioner." Qing nodded. "I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Master this time." The white-robed lady sighed softly. "It's all my fault for not being able to comprehend the Ice Snow Mountain's heritage. Palace Master, you're already a Sky-class late-phase peak at such a young age. You're already a rare genius, but the heritage of the Ice Snow Mountain has something to do with one's constitution as well," Qing consoled. "Looking at the other ancient sects and families, how many of them are as young as you are, Palace Master? But if we want to open the seal of the Heaven Stage Island, we must obtain the inheritance of ice from the Ice Spirit Mountain." The woman in white frowned. "The Heaven Stage Conference is not far away. As one of the leaders of the Heaven Stage Conference, if we can't find the inheritor, the Heaven Stage Conference will lose its meaning. The other 3 houses don't have any news, right? It's not that easy to find an inheritor." Qing smiled bitterly. "No news doesn't mean we haven't found one. To the ancient sects, the significance of an inheritor isn't just to open the island's seal. More importantly, it's a chance to break through the Sky class and pursue the heavenly Tao," the white-robed lady said. "So before the inheritor grows up, it won't be announced to the public. It's hard to avoid envious people causing trouble." "That's true." Qing nodded. "Palace Master, although you're not an inheritor, didn't you feel a part of the heritage as well? This can also be considered a fortuitous encounter." "Only a small part." The white-robed lady smiled bitterly. "Back then, before Master left, she hoped that I could obtain the heritage so that I could find her one day and meet her again. But now, if we can't open the island just because we haven't found an inheritor, then I'll be a sinner. How can I face her? Don't we still have some time? We can just take our time, there's no rush. If it really doesn't work, we can just do the test next year and relax the requirements. I don't believe that we can't find a suitable candidate," Qing suggested. "That's the only way. But I'm still not satisfied. I need to see the participants myself," the white-robed lady said. "That's fine, let's go bring the participants to the Ice Mountain then." Qing knew that the sect master wouldn't be at ease until she saw the only girl, Yang Qiqi. At 6:30 sharp, just as the participants were wondering where the emissary from the Ice Palace was, 2 figures, one green and one white, appeared in the sky. The girl in green was Elder Qing from yesterday, she was Sky Class Mid-Phase, and the girl in white beside her was Sky Class Late-Phase Peak. Both of their Qinggong weren't weak, they appeared in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. In the midst of everyone's shock, Qing spoke first. "This is the Sect Master of the Ice Palace. Sect Master, please explain the rules and rewards of the test." This was supposed to be Qing's mission, but since the Sect Master of the Ice Palace was here herself, it was better for her to do the introductions. When Qing said that this girl in white was the Sect Master of the Ice Palace, everyone went into an uproar. Even Naipao and Nian were shocked. This confirmed their suspicions from yesterday. The Sect Master of the Ice Palace was a Sky-class late-phase peak. Chapter 1497. Once one stepped into Sky Class, they would usually give up their position and go into isolation to pursue a higher level. They wouldn't be managing the family or the sect anymore, but this Ice Palace was different. Their sect master was Sky Class Late Phase Peak. There were only two possibilities. One was that there were too many Sky Class Late Phase Peak practitioners in the Ice Palace, and the other was that the current sect master was simply too young. Reaching Sky Class Late Phase Peak at such a young age had caught the elders off guard, and they didn't even have time to pick the next sect master. One had to know that not just anyone could be a sect master. After all, they needed to be raised from a young age, and had to have the ability to manage the entire Ice Palace. Although he didn't know what the reason was, the Ice Palace master was very young. Not only was she young, but she was also very beautiful. Compared to little Qing, who looked to be in her late teens, her looks were very normal. The Ice Palace master, on the other hand, was just like her name and position, like an ice princess. Elegant and refined, it was unforgettable to look at her. Of course, none of the participants dared to disrespect the sect master. She was a beauty, but they needed to be alive to admire her. They didn't even have the courage to look at a Sky Class Late Phase Peak like this. Linny couldn't help but be surprised at the sect master's appearance. Of course, Linny wasn't surprised because the sect master was a beauty, but because of her age. She really did look like she was around 19, no older than 25. This was different from Green. He could tell with certainty that the sect master didn't use a pill like that, but that she really was that old. Perhaps she'd broken through to Sky Class when she was 18 or 19 years old, and that was why she'd kept her face forever. Aunt Qing, you do the talking, I'm just here to take a look. The sect master's eyes stopped on Chi-Chi, the only female participant. She couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. This girl looked pretty cool, and had a cold personality, but she wasn't the person she was looking for. Her body wasn't suited for the Ice Palace practitioner's arts. And so, after confirming that Chi-Chi couldn't do it, the sect master lost interest in staying. Aunt Qing? The cultivators present were in an uproar. Qing didn't look that old, but the sect master called her Aunt Qing. How old was the sect master? Could it be that she was really as young as she looked, only in her 20s? Linny wasn't too shocked, as Linny had already thought of this before, and the sect leaders and Qing only confirmed Lin Yi's guess. Looking at the sect master, who was around the same age as him, and was already a Sky Class Late Phase Peak, Lin Yi could only smile bitterly. There was no way he could compete with her. Compared to a normal noble house, his advantage was still very obvious. But in a hidden noble house, his training talent and golden fingers were basically equal to the support of the noble house. And in the ancient world, Lin Yi had no advantage at all. The ancient sects were not to be underestimated. No wonder his old man had said that the ancient sects were out of his control. It seemed like he'd have to rely on himself in the future. But Lin Yi wasn't discouraged. His overall strength was still a far cry from Lin Yi's, but judging from the speed of his training these past few months, only that monster Zhang Naipao would be able to compete with him. Who else would dare say they'd leveled up in a few months? With that, the sect master turned and left. Qing knew the sect master's personality, and didn't mind. The Ice Palace mistress had grown up in the Ice Palace, and had become the personal disciple of the Grand Elder. She was going to be the next palace mistress, so her childhood was a lonely one. She had no friends or playmates, and all she had to do was train day and night. That was why her personality was so cold. Now I'll announce the rules and rewards, Qing said as she looked at the crowd. Participants are not allowed to drive, and I will lead the group to the mountain on foot. You can bring spirit beasts along, but they can't be higher than Mystic Late Phase Peak, or you'll lose your right to participate. You can bring servants and followers, but they can't be higher than Golden Class. Servants and followers are not allowed to participate in the trial, nor are they allowed to fight, nor are they allowed to hurt the other party's servants or followers. You can attack the other party's spirit beasts, but you can't steal them. These rules had been in place for a long time, and the participants all nodded in understanding. Not many families had spirit beasts, and if they were too weak, they'd be a burden instead. As for servants and followers, these people wouldn't bring them, they weren't young masters or mistresses, and they need someone to wait on them when they came out. In fact, this rule was customized for the previous trial rules. If a trial taker was killed, the servants and attendants could also help to bring the corpse back. However, this method of bringing attendants was a little lacking in confidence and inauspicious, so this time, no one brought them. Plus, the rules had been changed to not kill the opponent, and there was no need to bring servants and followers. If there are no objections, I'll talk about the rewards of the trial. In the trial, the top 3 with the most points will receive additional rewards from the Ice Palace. The rewards will be chosen from the elixirs and treasures collected in the trial, Qing said. And the top 10 with the most points will have the right to become an outer disciple of the Ice Palace, or the right to exchange for treasures. Does anyone have a problem with that? No. The crowd shook their heads. This was something mentioned in the invitation letter, and they didn't have too many objections to the rewards. Most of the people here were here for the outer disciple position. All right, pack your bags, we'll leave in an hour. Qing nodded. I'll wait for you here in an hour. Yes. The crowd nodded. They couldn't drive. Walking wasn't a problem for Lin Yi, but what about Xiao Xiao? The good thing was that this place was really cold even without the ice coffin. Xiao Xiao should be fine. But how were they going to bring her along? Chapter 1498. Fortunately, Lin Yi wasn't worried about the Ice Palace anymore. Since the Ice Palace said that he could bring Xiao Xiao along, then it didn't matter what his follower looked like, whether she was alive or dead, whether she walked on her own or carried on his back. She was his follower. This was Yu Bing's first time seeing Xiao Xiao, and seeing this beautiful and spirited girl lying in the ice coffin, Yu Bing's heart couldn't help but ache. No wonder Lin Yi would come all the way here just to find the medicine for her, even participating in the Ice Palace's test. This was a girl no weaker than his sister at this moment. Yu Bing realized just how fierce the competition around his sister was. You're really bringing her along? Yu Bing was a little shocked as he watched Lin Yi carry Xiao Xiao out of the Ice Palace. Yeah. That's for sure. Lin Yi nodded and took out some rope from the trunk, passing it to Yu Bing. Here, help me out. I'll carry Xiao Xiao, you help me tie her to my back. Yu Bing wanted to say, are you crazy? How dangerous was this? This test was already extremely dangerous, and now Lin Yi was going to carry someone. Wouldn't this be an extra burden, limiting his strength? But looking at Lin Yi's determined eyes, Yu Bing could only sigh and shake his head. All right. Lin Yi squatted down and put Xiao Xiao on his back, while Yu Bing helped secure Xiao Xiao onto Lin Yi's back. All right, thank you. Lin Yi stood up and jumped a couple of times, realizing that Yu Bing had tied him up really tightly. He nodded with a smile. Hey! I really don't know what to say. You're bringing someone to the test. This is the first time I've heard of it. Yu Bing sighed helplessly. I don't have much luggage, just a few medicine on me. This is enough. Then I won't go back to the inn. Lin Yi suddenly waved his hand towards the window of his room and said, Skybold Pig, come down! Gigi. A small white shadow darted out of the window of Lin Yi's room and flew to Lin Yi's side. Profound rank spirit beast? Yu Bing jumped in fright. He'd been to Lin Yi's room many times, and he'd even slept there last night. How come he didn't notice that there was an ancient spirit beast in Lin Yi's room? But he doesn't have any offensive skills. He's just trash, Lin Yi said, nodding. GG. After listening to Lin Yi's evaluation, the Skybolt Pig suddenly felt wrong, but he didn't dare to have any dissatisfaction with him. He'd seen Lin Yi's miraculous in just a short amount of time. He'd already leveled up a few 100 years ago. Yu Bing nodded. He didn't think too much about it. From what he could see, this Skybolt Pig was probably the same as his sister's ancient spirit beast. It didn't have any offensive skills, but it had a body full of strength. Ancient spirit beasts were rare, but every hidden house had a few of them. So Lin Yi's pig wasn't that eye-catching. Every hidden house had at least a few ancient spirit beasts. but there were very few ancient spirit beasts that had offensive skills. So there weren't many disciples who brought ancient spirit beasts to the test. If they brought a normal ancient spirit beast, not only would it not be able to help, but they'd also have to take care of it. Wouldn't that be a burden? And so, Lin Yi roughly looked around. There were only 4 or 5 people who went back to the inn to bring out their ancient spirit beasts, and their spirit beasts were at most early phase mystic class, the same level as the pig. So Lin Yi wasn't worried that the pig would be at a disadvantage. One had to know that when spirit beasts fought humans, it didn't matter what level it was. But when spirit beasts fought against spirit beasts, it was based on level. As long as the spirit beasts didn't cause trouble, Lin Yi didn't have to worry too much about them. An hour passed quickly, and Qing appeared in the plaza in front of the inn again. The disciples who were participating in the test were all packed up and ready to go. The news of Lin Yi carrying someone to the test had already spread. All the practitioners thought that there was something wrong with Lin Yi's head. Carrying a dead person to the test? Even if he was infatuated, he wouldn't be this crazy, right? Master Pao, do you think this Lin Yi ate too many retarded pills? Carrying a dead person to the test? Zhuang Niapeo looked at Lin Yi and said mockingly, I think he's looking for death, isn't he? To go to hell with that damned girl of his? Niapeo was surprised as well. He didn't know what Lin Yi was doing, but Niapeo was different from Zhuang Niapeo. His practitioner's arts were special, and he was more sensitive to external energy. He could feel that the girl on Lin Yi's back wasn't dead, but even if she wasn't, she was on the brink of death. With his understanding of Lin Yi, this guy wouldn't do something this stupid, would he? But he did it, and it was incomprehensible. Niapeo wanted to see who was on Lin Yi's back, but Xiao's face was on Lin Yi's shoulder, and her hair covered it. He couldn't see it clearly, and he gave up after a few glances. Who knows? Maybe she's here for a doctor? Niapeo shook his head. He couldn't think of any other reason for Lin Yi to bring a half-dead girl to the test. Most of the practitioners thought the same as Niapeo and Zhuang Niapeo. They didn't know why Lin Yi was doing this, but they all thought that Lin Yi was crazy. The rest were the people who didn't care what happened to them. What happened to Lin Yi had nothing to do with them. Yang Qiqi, for example, thought that Lin Yi was carrying a girl on his back. She didn't care what he was doing. Qing looked at all the participants, mainly checking the level of the spirit beasts they'd brought, seeing if any of them exceeded the rules of the Ice Palace. She paused when she saw the person on Lin Yi's back. But she didn't say anything. With her strength, she could feel Xu Xiao's situation. She was on the brink of death. She didn't know why Lin Yi brought her to the test, but Lin Yi's actions didn't break the rules. Chapter 1499. As far as Qing was concerned, this woman was most likely Lin Yi's lover. She was about to die, and Lin Yi was coming to participate in the test. He was worried about leaving her alone at home, so he brought her along. It wasn't strange at all. Not bad. Looks like everyone's following the rules today. Qing looked at the people and the spirit beasts in their hands and nodded. The group couldn't help but smile bitterly. With the previous examples, who would dare do anything under the Ice Palace people's noses anymore? Wasn't that the same as asking for death? Follow me, everyone. On the way to the test, don't make any noise or fight. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. With that, Qing turned around and walked forward slowly. The group didn't dare delay and quickly followed. At first, Yushan wanted to instigate Nian to do something to Yubing along the way, but it seemed like he couldn't do that now. The Ice Palace had already given the order, and no one dared to go against it. In the beginning, the road was flat and easy to walk on. However, after entering the range of the snowy mountain, it became more difficult to walk. In addition to the snowy sky, visibility was very low. Everyone activated their own inner force and mental cultivation to maintain their vigilance. Qing had already said that fighting wasn't allowed on the way to the test, but who could guarantee that there wouldn't be any ambushes? In this kind of situation where visibility was very poor, wouldn't it be very unlucky if they were ambushed? They were all mystic practitioners, and once they channeled their practitioner's arts, their eyes and ears were much sharper. They were able to keep up with Qing's footsteps. In fact, Qing was already suppressing her speed on purpose. Otherwise, with her sky-class strength, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that she was flying. "How are you? Are you all right?" Yu Bing was a little worried for Lin Yi. After all, it was already hard for them to walk like this, and Lin Yi was still carrying weights. It was obvious that when Lin Yi walked, he kept his body facing the wind so that the snow wouldn't hit Xiaoxiao's face. This might not affect Xiaoxiao, but Lin Yi was doing it subconsciously. "Nothing," Lin Yi smiled and said. "She's actually very light. Moreover, carrying her makes me more motivated. Ugh. I understand." Yu Bing looked at Lin Yi, then at Xiaoxiao's chest on Lin Yi's back, his face showing that he understood. Lin Yi was speechless as he looked at Yu Bing's perverted face. Was this guy thinking dirty? The motivation he was talking about was Xiaoxiao's illness. No matter how hard it was, he had to keep moving forward. What did that have to do with this? But with Yu Bing's reminder, Lin Yi realized that it was indeed quite comfortable. After walking for an hour, they finally arrived at the foot of the mountain. At the foot of the mountain, there was a group of Ice Palace disciples. They were all women in white, but they didn't look as young as the sect master and little Qing. Their appearances were also very ordinary, around 30 to 40 years old. Their white robes were different from the sect master's. The sect master's robe was of very elegant white gauze, while these disciples were all wearing white cotton robes, looking very plain. What surprised him, however, was that all of these Ice Palace disciples were above Earth class. The strongest one was an Earth class late phase peak. Of course, there weren't any Sky class. Once they stepped into Sky class, they wouldn't just be normal disciples anymore. "Alright, this is the starting point of the test." After Qing stood still, she turned to the participants and said, "To be fair, there will be disciples of the Ice Palace who will send you to different locations on the mountain. The locations will be random. Now you can all form your own teams, but each team can have more than 3 people. If there are more than 3, you'll need to split into 2 groups and meet up on the mountain." No one objected to what the Ice Palace was doing. If everyone were to be together, then they'd be thrown into chaos at the start of the test, losing the purpose of the test. But the restriction of 3 people disappointed a lot of them. They'd already contacted quite a lot of people before, thinking that there was strength in numbers. They wouldn't get bullied if they were together, but now that they were limited to 3 people, there was no point in finding more people. Although it was said that they could find their own rendezvous after reaching the top of the mountain, let's not talk about how easy it would be to find them. Even if they found them, the other party's group might not be able to merge with their own group. They might have already joined another group. Naipeo naturally formed a team with Zhuang Niapeo and Zhuang Niaoqiang. These 2 were the first to meet Naipeo, and they were the most familiar with him. The others couldn't compare. Nitian, on the other hand, formed a team with Yushan. As for Zhao Qikun, he could only form a team with Zhao Qijiu. There was no other choice. He couldn't let Qijiu be in his own team, could he? Lin Yi, naturally, formed a team with Yu Bing, but he had Xiaoxiao on his back. Even so, it wouldn't exceed the limit of 3 people. Very quickly, after everyone had split into groups, Qing gave the order, and all the Ice Palace disciples began to move. Each of them grabbed a participant, and flew off in different directions of the mountain. Of course, the people in the same team naturally went in the same direction. The snow mountain was covered in white light, and the disciples were very familiar with the route, but the participants weren't. They were thrown in different directions, and they didn't even have a sense of direction. "What do we do now?" Yu Bing and Lin Yi were thrown in a place where there were no other participants. Yu Bing looked at the white snow and couldn't help but ask. "Search for the fire spirit's fruit while searching for treasures. That way, you'll be able to pass the test," Lin Yi said. "Alright, I'll listen to you." Yu Bing and Lin Yi were together, and Lin Yi was the leader. He felt that compared to Lin Yi was much stronger than him. Yu Bing was considered one of the geniuses in House Yu, but compared to Lin Yi, he was nothing. Be it in terms of intelligence or strength, he was nothing. Skybolt Pig, where is the fire spirit's fruit? Can you sense it? Linny turned to Skybolt Pig. Oink! Skybolt Pig shook his head. Chapter 1500. Oink oink. The Thunder Pig felt wrong, but he couldn't explain himself. In a moment of desperation, he used his paw to write a few words on the snow. The snow mountain is too big, I can't sense it that far, but I can sense other treasures. If I look around, I might find the fire spirit's fruit. Fuck! If you can write, why didn't you write earlier? Linny didn't think that Skybolt Pig could write. He got even angrier. You can write? Why didn't you write before? GG. Skybolt Pig was even more wrong. I can't hold a pen, so I can only write on the snow. After he finished, he even showed Linny his scissors. Linny didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Alright, then we'll go look for treasures first. You can sense where the fruit is on the way. GG. The Skybolt Pig nodded in agreement. Linny and Skybolt Pig's conversation made Yu Bing click his tongue in wonder. Even though he had seen many spiritual beasts, there were very few spiritual beasts that could understand human language and understand human language. Not to mention, not only could it understand human language, but it could also write. Yu Bing had never heard of such a thing before. This Linny really could bring him surprises. It was as if all sorts of miraculous things weren't that miraculous when it came to him. You pig, you can find treasures? Yu Bing finally understood why Linny brought a spirit beast that didn't seem to have any attack abilities to participate in the test. It had other abilities. The test's grading was based on the number of treasures gathered, and with this little thing here, he wouldn't have to worry about not getting points. We'll be relying on him to find the fruit, otherwise where am I supposed to find it in this snowy mountain? Linny nodded. But don't tell anyone about this. Don't worry, I'll keep it a secret. Yu Bing nodded solemnly. He knew the value of this Skybolt Pig. If its abilities were as Linny said, then it would be a priceless treasure. Even the ancient sects would drool over it, let alone the hidden houses. Linny, on the other hand, didn't purposely wipe away the words the pig had written. The wind blew and the words disappeared very quickly. The two of them followed behind the Skybolt Pig and walked forward. Yang Qiqi was in a team by herself. She didn't know anyone and didn't want to team up with anyone. Other than the test, she was here to get the exchange rights for the Ice Palace's treasures. She heard that only the Ice Palace had that herb, and for her injured sisters, she had to find it. Otherwise, even a miracle doctor wouldn't be able to save them. It's an 8-leaf grass. Yang Qiqi didn't expect to see an 8-leaf grass growing on the snow not far from where she was standing. This was one of the more obvious elixirs, and while it wasn't that high in level, it was easy to spot. It was much easier to find than the ones hidden under the snow, and so Yang Qiqi excitedly took out her knife and carefully cut off the 8-leaf grass, putting it in her bag. Beep beep! Yang Qiqi's card beeped twice, and she quickly took it out to see that the number had changed from 0 to 5. It seemed like the 8-leaf grass was worth 5 points. It wasn't much, but it was still a win. A good start is half the battle. A smile appeared on Yang Qiqi's cool face. Lil sis Gio, this time, I'll definitely help you get that herb. Yang Qiqi clenched her fists, and the determination returned to her face as she walked forward. It had to be said that Yang Qiqi was quite lucky. It didn't take long before she found another snow mushroom under an unknown tree. Looking at the color, it was at least 100 years old. Compared to the 8-leaf grass, this was a true practitioner's medicine. Even hidden houses didn't have many of them. Yang Qiqi looked left and right subconsciously, making sure that there was no one around before making her way over to the mushroom. Yang Qiqi was very excited. She had crammed a lot of knowledge on spirit herbs before coming to the test, and naturally, she knew how valuable it was. If the 8-leaf grass was worth 5 points, then a normal snow mushroom would be worth at least 100, and this one that was over 100 years old was even more valuable. Yang Qiqi didn't think that her luck would be this good. Wasn't this too smooth? But just as Yang Qiqi was about to cut the mushroom down, a white python suddenly shot out of a hole in the tree. pouncing at Yang Qiqi. Yang Qiqi jumped in fright, suddenly remembering that the information she'd crammed mentioned that near treasures that were older than a few decades old, there would be beasts that lived there. These beasts could feel the qi of the treasure, and living beside it would benefit them as well. This was what they called becoming spirits. Actually, becoming spirits was too much of a mythical. The real situation was that normal beasts were transforming into spirit beasts. When a beast absorbed enough qi, it would produce qi within its body, and it would slowly evolve into a spirit beast. It wasn't an ancient spirit beast that was born with it, but these evolved spirit beasts were usually stronger than ancient ones. Ancient spirit beasts were just the descendants of spirit beasts with a purer bloodline. They had some magical abilities, but they didn't necessarily have that much offensive power. Like the skybow pig, it only had the ability to find treasures, but it didn't have that much offensive power. General Weiwu, on the other hand, was obviously strong. It could punch and kick its enemies, and this was the power of an evolved spirit beast. But it was fortunate that Qiqi was an assassin and a physical practitioner of Qigong. Her reflexes were extremely fast, and she retreated subconsciously the moment the snake came charging at her, barely dodging the attack. The python didn't chase after Qiqi, only standing guard in front of the mushroom, not letting Qiqi get any closer. Evidently, it treated the snow mushroom as its private property, and no one else was allowed to touch it. Big Snake, let's discuss this. Can you give me the snow mushroom? I really need it. I need the Ice Palace's exchange rights. Yang Qiqi didn't have much confidence in winning against this giant snake, so she had to discuss first. Didn't the information say so? Some spirit beasts that were about to become spirits had their own spirituality, and could understand human speech. PSSS-. The python hissed at Yang Qiqi, full of hostility. Chapter 1501. But Yang Qiqi still took a step forward, trying to get closer to the snow mushroom. But before she could, the white python pounced at her with a swoosh. Qiqi knew that her negotiation had failed after seeing the python's action. It didn't matter if it understood her or not, it wouldn't let her get the mushroom so easily. Qiqi gritted her teeth, not knowing if she should give up or not. But looking at this snowy mountain, she knew that treasures weren't that easy to find. If she really gave up on this mushroom, who knew if she'd be able to find other treasures in the future? Moreover, even if they found it, with the giant python guarding this place, there would probably be other spirit beasts guarding other places. I'll do it! Qiqi gritted her teeth and took out another poison dagger. She aimed it at the snake's head and plunged it in. If it were any other mystic, this python would be hard to deal with. But if two mystic masters worked together, it wouldn't be hard to take it down. After all, this python hadn't evolved into a true spirit beast. It wasn't even at golden class yet. It didn't even need two mystic masters, just one mystic would be able to take it down. But while Qiqi had the strength of a mystic, her training was a mystic physical practitioner's Qigong. She might be mystic, but she didn't have the attack power of a mystic. With a dull clang, Qiqi's dagger stabbed into the head of the python, but it only scratched the skin a little, leaving a superficial wound. It didn't do much to the python. But the snake seemed to have been stimulated by the pain. It opened its mouth wide and bit at Qiqi. Qiqi was fast, but her right hand was holding the dagger, and the dagger was near the snake's head. She didn't have time to pull it back, and the snake's teeth dug into her arm, forming a bone-deep wound. Blood flowed out in an instant. Qiqi was in pain, but she didn't let go of the dagger. She knew very well that if she lost the dagger, she wouldn't be able to beat the python unless she gave up and ran. She'd become a meal in its stomach. The enraged snake had bitten Qiqi's arm, but it didn't give up on attacking her. Qiqi's stab earlier had clearly made the snake hold a grudge, and it pounced on Qiqi again. Qiqi had no other choice. She could only bite down and swing the dagger again. Hit the snake where it hurts, but Qiqi didn't know where to start with this python. She could only randomly stab at the python's body, and after the pain, the python went even crazier. Not only did it want to bite Qiqi, it even swung its tail at her. The tail was huge, and Chi-Chi wanted to dodge it, but she couldn't do it in time. She fell to the ground. Chi-Chi was shocked. Her dagger was enough to kill people, but against a python, it was too small. It wasn't enough at all. Seeing the snake coming at her again, young Chi-Chi had no choice but to use her dagger to attack the snake, stabbing it again and again. But the snake bit down on her leg, tearing off a chunk of flesh. Oh! Chi-Chi was tearing up from the pain, but she gritted her teeth and held it in. She swung the dagger around, imagining the python as the person she hated the most. She stabbed it again and again. Lin-Yi! 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 I'll stab you to death! I'll stab you to death! It was as if the poison on the dagger had taken effect after taking a bite out of Chi-Chi's flesh. It didn't even have time to swallow it before it fell to the ground motionless. Phew, the poison's finally working? Young Chi-Chi let out a long breath and patted her racing heart, mumbling to herself. What a close shave I got with my life! No wonder even Uncle Tombstone said that the test was dangerous, that a snake almost ate me. But she'd still defeated the snake in the end, and Chi-Chi's lips curved into a relaxed smile. This snow Ganoderma should be worth quite a lot of points, right? As for the injuries, it was a bit more serious this time, but as an assassin, it was normal for Chi-Chi to get injured. She could take it. Chi-Chi got up from the ground, limping as she looked at her bloodied arms and legs. She didn't dare slow down, and took out a small bottle from her pocket. This was the medicine Lin-Yi had given her. Yan Chi-Chi carefully opened the bottle and sprinkled the herbs on her legs and arms, not wanting to waste a single drop. Man, there's not much left. I should ask for more when I see that guy. Chi-Chi didn't have the slightest awareness of being ungrateful, as if she didn't even remember the time when she mistook the snake for Lin-Yi and stabbed it with her dagger. After applying the herbs, Chi-Chi didn't dare waste any time. Who knew if her fight would attract the attention of others? And so Chi-Chi didn't rest as she limped over, ready to cut the snow Ganoderma. Not far from the mountain, there were two teams that seemed to have found the same herb at the same time. They were in a stalemate, ready to fight at any moment. But the strength of the two teams were about the same. One team had one mystic early phase, one late phase, and one mid-phase. The other team, on the other hand, had two peak late-phase masters and one mid-phase master. And so, if these two teams were to fight, it would be hard to tell who would win. And so, in a situation like this, it was a battle of patience. But this scene was seen by Zhang Naipao, Zhuang Niapao, and Zhuang Niaoqiang. Master Pao, there's another group of fat sheep up ahead. Zhuang Niapao pointed at the two teams excitedly. One couldn't blame him for being so excited. Their team didn't even need to worry about finding treasures, they just needed to find people. Without a second word, they just started robbing, and so it hadn't even been half a day since the test started, and he and Niaoqiang had already gotten 50 points each, and Naipao himself had already gotten more than 100 points. Not bad. Go get them to hand over their points. Naipao nodded as if this was something natural. Chapter 1502. These two teams were in a standoff, and they didn't expect that someone else would come, and with such arrogance. But when they turned around and saw Zhang Naipao, their faces were filled with helplessness and frustration. They knew what kind of person Zhang Naipao was, and they couldn't help but feel regretful. They shouldn't have fought with him over a herb, and if one of them had given up, they wouldn't have met Zhang Naipao. But now, not only was the stalk of spirit herb in front of him gone, the other spirit herbs in his hands would also become the spoils of war for others. You guys, what do you want? One of the teams asked, hoping that Zhang Naipao and the others were just passing by, or that they had their eyes on the herb that didn't have an owner yet. That way, they would be able to escape. What do I want? Hand over your herbs, and I'll let you live. Otherwise, you know what happened to that Lin-Yi, right? If you think that you can recover after your chi is sucked dry, then come try. Zhuang Niapao humphed coldly. So, you guys want to snatch it? One of the teams said. The mystic late phase peak wasn't happy. He was the strongest here, even stronger than Zhang Naipao, and naturally, he didn't want to give up his loot. Snatch it? What a joke, you don't know the rules of the test yet, do you? The test allows you to snatch other people's herbs. Are you deaf, or do you have a memory problem? Zhuang Niapao said coldly. What, you don't want to shout it out? Smart! The mystic late phase peeked coldly and channeled his practitioner's arts, punching towards Zhang Naipao, who wasn't far away. He yelled, Capture the ringleader first, I'll fight Zhang Naipao, you guys go together, and use this chance to cripple them. Otherwise, our loot will all go to others. From the perspective of this mystic late phase peak, no one would want to give their spoils of war to someone else for free. With him leading the way, everyone would definitely be united and attack together. But this mystic late phase peak trial taker had overestimated the guts of the others. As far as he was concerned, the worst case scenario was that the other team wouldn't make a move, but his own team would. After all, this involved everyone's interests. But after the mystic late phase peak warrior attacked, his two teammates didn't move at all, not to mention the opposing team member. His two teammates were formed at the last minute as well, and their relationship wasn't that strong. It was just a combination of benefits. Their thoughts were simple at this point, and that was that fighting Naipao wasn't a rational thing to do. His wasp absorption arts could turn his opponent into a cripple, so who would take that risk? Plus, even if he did hurt Naipao, would he really be fine? He had the ancient sect behind him, the everyday sect. If they were targeted by something like that, not only would they not have a good life, even their families would be affected. And so, no one moved at this point, they were just waiting to watch the show. If the mystic late phase peak could beat Naipao, then they'd be happy to sit back and watch, but if he couldn't, then what was the point of them making a move? They might as well just hand over the loot. Without the loot, they could always look for it again, and even if they couldn't find it, it didn't matter if they couldn't pass the test, but if they lost their strength and became a cripple, then they'd be done for. And so, the hot-blooded mystic late phase peak stupidly walked right into Naipao's spear. Naipao only raised his hand casually, taking the attack head-on, and channeled his chrysanthemum wasp absorption arts, absorbing the chi from the mystic late phase peak into his own body. The mystic late phase peak was shocked. He'd only heard of it before, but now that he'd experienced it himself, he knew just how scary Naipao was. Before, he knew how strong Naipao was, but it was just a rumor as far as he was concerned. Even if Naipao could absorb other people's strength, as long as he stopped channeling his arts, how would he absorb it? Plus, he'd seen that Lingy, he didn't lose his strength at all, in fact, he'd broken it. And so, he thought that Naipao's arts were just rumors, that he wasn't that strong. But now, he realized that he was wrong. Very, very wrong. He stopped channeling his arts, but the chi in his body was still flowing into Naipao's body, uncontrollably. Moreover, he couldn't move his fist away even if he wanted to. Only now did he realize that the rumors were true, there was no falsehood at all. While he was regretting it, he was also a little pissed off that his partner didn't make a move. What are you guys doing? Hurry up and make a move! My chi is about to be sucked dry! The mystic late phase peak participant yelled in shock and anger. The other team members looked at each other, no one dared to make a move. What a joke, that mystic late phase peak wasn't even a match for Naipao. What right did they have to make a move? What, you guys want to make a move too? Come at me, I'll suck every single one of them. Naipao cackled coldly. Impossible, I don't believe that. How many hands do you have? Can you suck every single one of them? The mystic late phase peak seemed to want to prove that Naipao was lying as he swung his left fist and right leg at the same time. But the next moment, his left fist and right leg were all sucked into Naipao's body, he couldn't pull them out. And now, the chi in his body was draining even faster. At this moment, the other team members who saw this miraculous scene did not dare to act rashly. We're willing to give all our spoils to Master Pao. The weakest mystic early phase was scared out of his wits as he quickly took out all the treasures he'd collected and put them on the ground. In order to show that he'd taken everything, he even took out his points card, letting the others see the number on it. What about you guys? Zhuang Niapeo nodded, satisfied. Kid, at least you know your place. Chapter 1503. Ha ha! On the other side, Niapeo was laughing maniacally as he pushed away the practitioner who used to be a mystic late-phase peak. He was no longer a practitioner, but a normal person. Thank you so much, you made me touch the barrier of mystic late-phase peak. I just broke through, and now I'm about to break through again. Ha ha! After all, the chi he took from other people's bodies had to go through another transformation before it could be used by Niapeo. But because the energy was different, there would be some loss after the transformation, and depending on the purity of the opponent's energy, the loss would be different as well. The chi he absorbed from Lin Yi's place was extremely pure, allowing him to break through from mystic mid-phase peak to mystic late phase. But this mystic late phase peak practitioner's chi wasn't very pure, and so even though he was stronger than Lin Yi, the efficiency of converting it into his own chi wasn't high. It only gave him a slight benefit. As for him breaking through again, it was just a bluff to scare people off. The mystic late phase peak was pushed by Niapeo, and he fell to the ground. A trace of regret flashed across his eyes, but it was too late for regrets now. After collecting the spoils, Niapeo left with the brothers Niapeo and Niaoqiang. These people had lost their value, and he needed to find other teams to take their spoils. I'm sorry. We couldn't do anything at that time. After Niapeo left, the mystic early phase peak who was in the same team as the crippled late phase peak said apologetically to him. I saw Niapeo fight Lingyi with my own eyes, and I knew we weren't his match. I wanted to stop you, but it was too late, forget it. I was too impulsive, and underestimated Niapeo's strength with my mystic late phase peak strength. I can't blame anyone else. The crippled late phase peak smiled bitterly. He couldn't blame anyone else, and he could only blame himself for being too impulsive. Let's go, we'll continue to search for heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Don't worry, as long as we have it, we'll bring out your share. Everyone was somewhat apologetic about what had happened before. Now that these two teams were penniless, there was no reason for them to continue fighting. It was better to unite and search for elixirs together. Yang Qiqi carefully cut the mushroom off, and the moment she put it in her bag, her card beeped twice, and the numbers on it started increasing. In the blink of an eye, it broke through 100, 200, 300, and it still didn't stop. Qiqi's eyes were wide open. She didn't think that she'd hit the jackpot this time, picking up a treasure. This snow Ganoderma wasn't just 100 years old. 500, 600, 1,000, 1,500. Finally, the number on the card stopped at 1,005. In other words, this snow mushroom had given Qiqi a full 1,000 points. That was 1,000 points. How many ordinary heavenly treasures would be needed to accumulate that many points? The 8-leaf grass was only worth 5 points. Plus, it had only been half a day. This filled Qiqi with confidence. She believed that as long as her luck wasn't too bad, and she could find some ordinary treasures, passing the Ice Palace test wouldn't be a problem at all. This is great. Qiqi felt that the wounds on her arms and legs weren't hurting as much anymore. She was full of fighting spirit. Girl, what's so great? A cold, mocking voice came from behind Qiqi. Who's there? Qiqi turned around subconsciously, and saw the three people she didn't want to see the most. Niapeo, Niapeo, and Niapeo. On the way to Snowfrost Town, this Niapeo had even teased her, and Qiqi had a very bad impression of him. If it weren't for the fact that she wasn't as strong as them, Qiqi would have killed them already. It's you, Gunslinger, of course. And you, Master Pao. Niapeo added as he remembered that Niapeo was here. What are you guys doing? Qiqi asked subconsciously. Girl, aren't you acting all high and mighty? Didn't you ignore us? I'll let you know the price of looking down on us. Niapeo laughed coldly. This place is my world. I'll play you to death. But just as he said that, Niapeo realized that Qiqi was covered in blood on her body, on her legs. It was scary. He couldn't help but curse inwardly. He'd been planning on messing with Chi-Chi during the test, but seeing her in such a pitiful state, he lost interest all of a sudden. Who would want to play with a bloody person? Fuck, what's wrong with you? You're covered in blood, Neopeo said unhappily. It's none of your business. Chi-Chi looked at the three cautiously. You're lucky. Hand over all your loot and I'll let you go. I won't kill you. Zhuang Neopeo waved his hand impatiently. Why should I? Chi-Chi subconsciously tightened her grip on her backpack. She worked so hard to get this, how could she give it up so easily? That was impossible. Why should I? Hand it over if you don't want to die. Neopeo shouted. Dream on! Chi-Chi yelled as she channeled her Qigong and turned around, wanting to run away from this place. But young Chi-Chi had forgotten that her leg was already injured, and her lightness kung fu had been severely affected. She didn't even make it a few steps before she almost fell to the ground from the pain. But while her starting speed wasn't slow, there was someone who was faster. In the blink of an eye, Neopeo was standing not far from Chi-Chi, his speed shocking. This was the first time Neopeo had used any other aspect of his strength other than his wasp absorption arts. He didn't only know the wasp absorption arts, there were other arts in the chrysanthemum arts, but Neopeo didn't use them under normal circumstances. The other arts weren't as practical as the wasp absorption arts. The wasp absorption arts could turn other people's strength into his own, and to Neopeo, it was like a golden finger. Chapter 1504. After all, his kung fu was just too creepy. If he were to absorb anyone he met, how were they supposed to live? And so, in order to avoid being surrounded, Neopeo only used the wasp absorption arts on his enemies. He wouldn't use it on anyone else. Yang Chi-Chi, for example, was only running away, and not attacking. Neopeo wouldn't use the wasp absorption arts on her. It was like a cheat, and people would get jealous if he used it too much. Neopeo could be considered invincible in the mystic class, but what about Earth class? If he was at the early phase of Earth class, he could risk getting injured to use the wasp absorption divine art. But if he was at the peak of the early phase of Earth class, he couldn't do it. He was arrogant, but not arrogant. Besides, leveling up wasn't his main goal. His main goal was to break through the first stage of the chrysanthemum arts and enter the second stage. This was why he was participating in the test. He was looking for an opportunity to break through. Neopeo, on the other hand, didn't really care about strength growth. As long as he trained the second stage of the chrysanthemum arts, his strength would naturally increase. He was at the first stage of the chrysanthemum arts now, only one step away from the second. But he couldn't open the jade box for the second stage. Neopeo might be at the first stage, but he still couldn't open the box for the second stage. He still couldn't understand it. He remembered that when he first opened the jade box containing the first level of the cultivation method, he didn't have to spend much effort at all. But now, even after using all of his strength, he was still unable to open the jade box on the second layer. Trying to run away from me, Neopeo? Who do you think you are? Neopeo looked at Chi-Chi coldly. I'm a person who doesn't want to fight with girls. Hand over your treasures and I'll let you go. Don't force my hand. No! Chi-Chi bit her lips, cursing Neopeo for being a robber. How could this guy be so evil? Instead of searching for treasures of heaven and earth, he went to rob others' things. But if it were any other situation, young Chi-Chi could always run away if she couldn't win. Her family's Qigong was no joke, after all. It was the result of generations of research and practice. But now, she was seriously injured and couldn't run fast at all, not to mention fighting with others. Humph! Neopeo humphed coldly and floated to Chi-Chi's side. With a wave of his hand, Chi-Chi's bag of treasures fell into Neopeo's hands. Since you're a girl, I won't turn you into a cripple. Give it back. Chi-Chi was in despair. She wanted her treasure back, but how was she a match for Neopeo? At this point, Neopeo was already far away, standing at his original position. Master Pao is indeed powerful. Not only does he have divine skills to protect his body, but his lightness skill is also amazing, Zhuang Niapeo praised. He didn't know that Niapeo had other skills other than the wasp absorption arts, but now that he saw it, he realized that the people of the ancient sects were not to be underestimated. If one thought that Niapeo only knew the wasp absorption arts and nothing else, then they would be sorely mistaken. Yeah, once Master Pao makes a move, it'll be as easy as pie, Zhuang Niapeo said as well. It's all right, Niapeo said faintly. He looked at Chi-Chi's bag and took out the treasures. He wasn't interested in the other women's stuff. He had no interest in the things that men and women used. He was a transcendent being. Only 2 heaven and earth treasures? You're poor enough. Niapeo frowned. He didn't expect Chi-Chi to only have 2 treasures in her bag. It was too little. Chi-Chi was troubled. You think it's too little? You don't want it? Give it back. Humph. Chi-Chi humphed coldly. Eh? The next moment, Niapeo put the 2 treasures into his bag, and he let out a surprised gasp. His electronic card had suddenly increased by 1,000 points. Before this, he only had 300 points, and that was after robbing a few teams of their own. 1,000 points? What the hell are these 2 things? Niapeo didn't really look at Chi-Chi's treasures before, only throwing them into his pouch casually. But now, he quickly took them out, and his eyes landed on the snow Ganoderma. He couldn't help but be surprised. A 500-year-old snow Lingji? You're really a rich little lady. You can even find such a heaven-defying treasure of heaven and earth? I've underestimated you. But thank you so much, 1,000 points. It looks like I'm going to get first place this time. Congratulations, Master Pao, congratulations. Master Pao, you're a lucky man. Zhuang Niapeo and Zhuang Niaoqiang congratulated him, envious. But since this was Niapeo's, they didn't dare ask for it. Haha, you guys don't have to worry, you can have all the treasures we get in the future. I've got more than enough. Niapeo laughed and turned to Chi-Chi. Thank you so much, girl. Chi-Chi was so depressed that she wanted to vomit blood. Her tears couldn't help but flow down her face as she listened to Niapeo and the others' proud words. This was the snow Lingji that she had worked so hard for, fighting the python, and it was taken away by these villains just like that. They really were evil. The more she thought about it, the sadder and sadder she felt. She already had the right to trade, but now, she had to start all over again. But with her injuries like this, could she still get any other treasures? Normal ones were fine, but what about the treasures guarded by wild beasts? It was definitely impossible to obtain it. You're saying that there's a 500-year snow Lingji up ahead? Are you for real? Even someone like Lin Yi, who had seen a lot of treasures, was shocked by this news from Skybolt Pig. 500-year-old snow Lingji might not be of much use to Xiao Xiao, but it was still a legendary treasure. Zhang Liju's refiner's notes had mentioned that it was one of the ingredients used to make many 4th and 5th level elixirs. It was a priceless treasure. Chapter 1505. Soulmate. GG. Skybolt Pig nodded with certainty, implying that there was no need to doubt his instincts. 500-year-old snow mushroom, if we get it, we'll get at least 500 points. Yu Bing said with some envy and shock. This one treasure is enough to pass the Ice Palace test. Haha, if that's the case, then you can have all the treasures we found earlier. I only need this one. Lin Yi smiled and said to Yu Bing. Really? Thank you so much. Yu Bing said excited. Lin Yi was really lucky. Originally, it was all thanks to Skybolt Pig that they found all these treasures, and even if Lin Yi didn't give it to him, Yu Bing wouldn't say anything. But now, Lin Yi was giving all the treasures he found earlier to him. Didn't that mean that he would have a lot of points? One had to know that the treasures they found earlier added up to 400 to 500 points according to Yu Bing's estimation. 400 to 500 points should be enough to get into the top 10. The heaven and earth treasures that the Sky Thunder Pig found were all worth more than 50 points. As for those heaven and earth treasures that were worth 5 or 10 points, it would ignore them and pretend not to see them. Therefore, this was also the reason why they found so many heaven and earth treasures with high points in half a day. In this period of time, Lin Yi and Yu Bing had met a few other teams, but these people all stayed away from Lin Yi and Yu Bing. They didn't seem to have any intentions of stealing from them. Although many people saw Lin Yi getting stepped on by Zhang Naipao, they also saw how Lin Yi recovered his strength in one night and broke through to mystic late phase. These people saw with their own eyes that Lin Yi was a weird person, and no one would try to cause trouble for him. They knew that they weren't Zhang Naipao, and they had no confidence in dealing with a weirdo like him. And so, they saved a lot of trouble along the way. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was a person who wouldn't touch others if they didn't mess with him. He didn't really care about the others. Gee! All of a sudden, Skybolt Pig stopped beside a huge tree, and his face was filled with disappointment and helplessness. What's wrong? Lin Yi frowned. You didn't find the snow mushroom? There's a python here, looks like it was killed not long ago. Yu Bing pointed at the tree. Lin Yi looked over and saw a dead white python. At this moment, half of the python's body was covered in snow. Because it was also white, if one didn't look carefully, they would have missed it. As for the Skybolt Pig, it ran to the side of the towering tree and used its front paws to dig at the snow. After a while, the snow on the roots of the tree was removed. The disappointment on the Skybolt Pig's face became even stronger. Oink oink! Skybolt Pig pointed at the place he dug with his front paw. Lin Yi heard Skybolt Pig's call and looked over. He saw that where Skybolt Pig was pointing, there was the root of a snow mushroom that had just been dug out. In other words, this snow mushroom had just been dug out. Dug out? Lin Yi asked. From the looks of it, it should have been dug out not long ago. Seems like that's the case. Yu Bing walked over as well and said regretfully after seeing the situation on top of the tree roots. I wonder who dug it out. How could they be so lucky? Lin Yi smiled bitterly and said, Forget it, we already have enough heaven-defying cheating devices. We don't need one more snow Ganoderma. Let's continue looking for other treasures. That's true. Yu Bing nodded. Let's go, little fella, let's go find the next treasure. Lin Yi said to Skybolt Pig. Gee. Skybolt Pig didn't want to give up. He pointed at a direction not far away, as if telling the person who dug out the snow mushroom to go in that direction. Lin Yi paused, but understood immediately. Skybolt Pig should still be able to sense the existence of the snow mushroom. He didn't lose his sense just because the snow mushroom was dug out. Looking in the direction Skybolt Pig was pointing, Lin Yi paused. Lin Yi saw a black shadow not far away. It should be a person, and there were red blood stains on him. He seemed to be injured. There's a person over there? Lin Yi asked curiously. Eh? It seems like it's really a person. Yu Bing saw the black shadow not far away. Let's go take a look. Let's not mind our own business. Lin Yi wasn't someone who liked to meddle in other people's business. Whether the participant was injured or not didn't matter to him. Let's take a look first, maybe it's someone we know, Yu Bing suggested. All right, let's go take a look then. Lin Yi nodded. The two walked towards the black shadow as they talked. When they got closer, Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw the face of the black shadow. Isn't that your girlfriend? Yu Bing teased. Confidant? More like chasing after the soul. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile bitterly. The injured person on the snow was Yang Qiqi. At this moment, Yang Qiqi was sitting on the snow, angrily wiping her tears. It wasn't because she was in pain, but because she couldn't stand the fact that her hard-earned loot was taken away by a villain. Her plan to pass the Ice Palace test was basically ruined. Although that was what Lin Yi said, Lin Yi couldn't just ignore it. After all, he'd saved Qiqi twice already, and now that he saw it, Lin Yi had to help. During the strength test, he announced that Qiqi was a freelancer, and this made Lin Yi feel like they were in the same boat. Since they were both freelancers without the support of a big sect, Lin Yi would naturally help if he could. What's wrong? Did someone hurt you? Sitting on the ground and crying? Linny walked over and smiled at Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi was so focused on getting angry that she didn't even notice that someone had gotten close. In fact, if Linny didn't want her to notice, she wouldn't have noticed at all. You! Why are you here? Laughing at me? Chi-Chi saw that it was Linny. Her face was pale from the blood loss, and a trace of despair flashed across her face. Why did this guy have to be her unlucky self every time she was in trouble? Chapter 1506. Chapter 1504. You're as bad as they're. Both. Chi-Chi nodded, a little troubled that Linny had hit the nail on the head. Both? You were the one who found the snow herb? Linny blinked. It was me, but Jean Naipeo and those bastards took it away, Chi-Chi said angrily. If I hadn't gotten hurt fighting the snake, they wouldn't have gotten it. Come on, if it weren't for your injuries, you'd probably die a worse death fighting Zhang Naipeo, Linny teased. Humph. Chi-Chi humphed, but didn't deny it. Naipeo was strong, and she knew that she wasn't his match. I didn't want to get involved in this at first, but since it was Zhang Naipeo who took it, I don't mind getting it back. Linny heard that it was Naipeo who took the herb, and he started thinking about stealing it. Really? Chi-Chi's eyes lit up. Really? But I won't give it back to you, whoever gets it first. Linny, naturally, wasn't planning on giving it back to Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi couldn't hold back her tears anymore after hearing Lin Yi's overbearing words. She'd been wronged enough already, and Linny had finally given her some hope, letting her see the light at the end of the tunnel. But in the blink of an eye, Linny had become a robber. He didn't give the herb back to her, instead taking it for himself. This made young Chi-Chi even sadder. Thinking about Lil Nine's sickness, young Chi-Chi felt even worse. She was so close to getting the right to exchange, but it was gone just like that. You're as bad as them. Chi-Chi glared at Linny, tears falling down her cheeks as if Linny had stolen something from her. I wanted the exchange right to cure my good sister, but now... Wah! Chi-Chi didn't even cry when she was hurt, but now she was crying. Although Linny was a cold person, he was a bit soft-hearted. He couldn't ignore the people he knew. He thought about how this cool girl didn't cry even when she was heavily injured, but now she was crying because a heavenly treasure was stolen. In that case, the exchange right was really important to her. All right, don't cry. I'll snatch it back later and return it to you. But we want the other things, Linny said helplessly. You're a physical cultivator, right? I'll need your help later. If you want the snow Lingji, you have to put in some effort. Really? Chi-Chi was overjoyed at Lin Yi's words. She nodded quickly. Yes, I'll do my best. Definitely. Ha! Linny smiled. All right, let's heal your wounds first, and then we'll go find John Naipeo for revenge. Linny wasn't in a rush to go after Naipeo. He had the Skybolt pig, and he'd be able to find out where the snow Lingji was. As long as the snow Lingji was on Naipeo, he'd be able to find him. Even without Chi-Chi, Linny would have gone after Naipeo. He'd suffered a loss before, and although he managed to break through, Linny wasn't the type to let things slide. It wouldn't be in Lin Yi's character to let things slide. Heal? Now? Chi-Chi paused. I've already used the medicine you gave me. Yu Bing stood on the side, finding it funny. These two were like happy enemies. Lin Yi said he wasn't going to help, but he still did, and even gave the snow Lingji back to this cool girl. But Yu Bing didn't complain. After all, Lin Yi was the one who took the snow Lingji back. Lin Yi was free to give it back to Chi-Chi if he wanted to. The medicine won't heal anytime soon. If you want to stand up and fight now, then stop talking, Lin Yi said. Oh. Then. Do I still need to take off my clothes? Chi-Chi remembered that her shoulder and leg were injured as well. Was Lin Yi going to take off her clothes again? No need. Lin Yi didn't say much and squatted down next to Chi-Chi. Because of Xiao Xiao behind him, Lin Yi couldn't sit down. After that, Lin Yi grabbed Chi-Chi's hand and locked her meridians. He threw away the bandages and medicine and quickly channeled the arc of dragon mastery into the jade space. Chi-Chi was startled. She didn't want to be held by a man like Lin Yi, but seeing that Lin Yi was only checking her meridians and didn't do anything else, she let him. But in the next moment, Chi-Chi felt a warm flow from Lin Yi's hand into her meridians. Her wound started to feel warm, making Chi-Chi very comfortable. She couldn't help but let out a moan. But after the moan, Chi-Chi blushed a little. That moan really did sound like some kind of sound, and in front of Lin Yi, she felt very embarrassed. A playful smile appeared on Yu Bing's lips, but when he saw the serious look on Lin Yi's face, Yu Bing realized that he was wrong. Lin Yi didn't seem to be doing anything dirty at all. Chi-Chi also saw that Lin Yi didn't seem to care about her at all, and she let out a breath of relief. Huh! Chi-Chi suddenly realized that the wounds on her shoulder and arm were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chi-Chi was shocked. How was this possible? The scene in front of her was beyond her imagination. She had never seen a wound that could heal like this. Chi-Chi's question attracted Yu Bing's attention as well. Originally, Yu Bing didn't want to see Lin Yi heal Chi-Chi because he was afraid of seeing something he shouldn't see. But now that he turned around subconsciously, he saw the miraculous scene on Chi-Chi's wound. He couldn't help but exclaim, "This? How is this possible? Even House Sun doesn't have this kind of ability, does he?" When Yu Bing's swollen face was healed by Lin Yi, he was already surprised enough, but he wasn't as surprised as he was right now. Treating swollen wounds was different from treating wounds. Swollen wounds could be treated with pure qi, but there was a lot of flesh on the wounds. How could they be healed so quickly? Very quickly, the wounds on Chi-Chi's shoulder and arm were completely healed, and there was white skin growing on her arm. It's done. Chi-Chi couldn't believe her eyes. You healed my arm just like that? Don't talk, there's still your leg, Lin Yi said faintly. Chapter 1507. Did you do it on purpose? It didn't take long for Chi-Chi's leg injury to heal as well. It's done! Lin Yi stood up. Ah? It's done! It's really done! Chi-Chi looked at her leg and arm in disbelief. Lin Yi, I really don't know what to say. You can even heal an injury like this so quickly. Yu Bing looked at Chi-Chi's flawless arm in shock. Don't look at indecent things. If you want to be chased by her, then keep looking, Lin Yi reminded Yu Bing. Ah! Yu Bing jumped in fright and quickly turned his head around. In actuality, Chi-Chi's injuries were only on her arm and calf. As for her shoulder, Lin Yi didn't purposely take away the medicine that she used to bandage it. It didn't really matter. So, even if Yu Bing saw her arm and calf, it didn't matter. Right. You could heal me like this. Why did you take off my clothes last time? Were you trying to be a pervert? Chi-Chi suddenly remembered that Lin Yi took off her clothes when he healed her last time. He didn't even need to take off her clothes to heal her, so he must have done it on purpose? Looking at the angry Chi-Chi, Lin Yi didn't know what to say. He was healing her, and now she was in trouble? I didn't know how to heal like this last time, Lin Yi said faintly. And this method uses a lot of qi. You're a typical ungrateful person, aren't you? I healed you and you're questioning me instead of thanking me? Chi-Chi was embarrassed, but she understood what Lin Yi was saying. She was a physical practitioner, but she knew the importance of qi. And so, Chi-Chi said unwillingly, this time. Thanks, but I can't just let it go like this when you saw me naked last time. Do whatever you want. Lin Yi didn't want to talk to her anymore. It wasn't the first or second time Chi-Chi said something like this. Yu Bing was laughing on the side, thinking that the conversation between these two was quite amusing. Right. Who's that on your back? Chi-Chi had been curious about why Lin Yi was carrying someone on his back to participate in the test. My girlfriend is sick. She needs a type of elixir to cure her illness. Lin Yi didn't hide anything. My goal is similar to yours. We are both looking for elixirs to treat other people's illnesses. Oh. Chi-Chi looked at Xiao Xiao behind Lin Yi and nodded. This guy was quite good to his girlfriend. He actually carried her behind his back to participate in the trial. Didn't he find it troublesome? Let's not talk about that, let's talk about John Naipeo, Linny said. I've thought of a few countermeasures, one of which is to use a physical practitioner against him. His practitioner's arts can absorb spiritual practitioner's strength for his own use, so it's almost impossible for spiritual practitioners to fight him head-on, but it's different for physical practitioners. Physical practitioners don't have chi in their bodies, and he can't absorb it. When the time comes, we can use physical practitioners to attack him, and maybe we'll get an unexpected result. You're saying, you want me to attack Zhang Naipeo? Chi-Chi asked. Yes, I'll attract his attention, and you attack him from behind. Linny nodded. All right. Chi-Chi didn't say much. She hated Zhang Naipeo to the bone, so there was no way she would let go of a chance to deal with him herself. Then what do I need to do? Yu Bing asked. You just need to keep the Zhuang brothers occupied. Don't let them cause trouble in the middle, Linny said. All right, no problem. Yu Bing didn't dare fight Zhang Naipeo, but he had some confidence in dealing with Niapeo and Niaoqiang. Little guy, let's go, bring us to the snow Ganoderma, Linny said to Skybolt Pig after arranging everything. Oink oink. Skybolt Pig nodded and started running. He didn't want to give up anymore after all. The snow Ganoderma he'd been looking for was taken away by someone else. How could he just give up like that? Zhang Naipeo, Zhuang Niapeo, and Zhuang Niaoqiang were walking and stopping other than collecting some treasures themselves. They were waiting for other teams to come and steal from them. At this moment, Zhang Naipeo had just stolen another team's treasures, and was splitting the spoils with the Zhuang brothers. Getting something for nothing, doesn't it feel good? After walking for a while, Linny saw Zhang Naipeo and the other two. They had just stolen something from another team, and so Linny couldn't help but mock them. Eh? Who did I think it was? Isn't this the school's boss, Lin? What's wrong? You have too much strength, and you want to give me some? Zhang Naipeo turned around and saw Lin Yi. He paused and started laughing. He didn't know why Lin Yi was here, but as far as he was concerned, Lin Yi was going to give him strength again. No matter what tricks Lin Yi had up his sleeves, it was useless. The wasp absorption arts was omnipotent. Stealing from others feels good, doesn't it? But the feeling of being robbed isn't bad either. Linny walked towards Naipeo and said calmly, You mean, you want to have a taste of being robbed? Naipeo understood what Linny was saying, but as far as he was concerned, Linny was just bluffing. He pretended like he didn't understand and asked back. Then come, I'll let you have a taste of being robbed. Do it. With that, Linny moved first, sending a palm towards Naipeo. Naipeo laughed as he looked at Linny as if he was looking at an idiot. He reached out his hand towards Linny. Some people just don't have a good memory. After getting sucked once, you still want to come to me. I really don't understand. Is there really such an idiot in this world? Yu Bing and Chi-Chi moved at the same time Linny spoke. Chi-Chi was an expert in assassination, and her Qigong had recovered as well. In an instant, she moved behind Naipeo. Eh? Naipeo was surprised. He had channeled the chrysanthemum wasp absorption arts, but he didn't get any chi from Lin Yi's hand. In the next moment, he understood that Lin Yi did not use the incantation, and the palm that he struck out did not carry a shred of pure chi. Chapter 1508. I'm tricking you. You idiot, this is your fourth plan, isn't it? You want to use this to attack me? But I'm sorry, my wasp absorption arts is just a passive art from the chrysanthemum arts, a passive skill. Now, have you realized that you can't stop anymore? What? It's a passive skill. Lin Yi's face changed. Ha ha ha, you just realized? It's too late, just wait for you to become a cripple again. Naipeo's eyes were filled with disdain towards Lin Yi. Master Pao's divine arts protect you, Master Pao is mighty. Zhuang Niapeo and Zhuang Niaoqiang saw that Lin Yi had become Naipeo's sacrificial pawn once again, and they started cheering. Yu Bing and Chi-Chi, on the other hand, had a look of deep worry in their eyes. But in a situation like this, they couldn't do anything. Naipeo was practically invincible. How could they do anything? And so, they could only put their hopes on Lin Yi, hoping for a miracle. Oh. Lin Yi nodded faintly. Actually, I forgot to tell you that the first 4 plans were just for you to play with. The 5th plan is the one I'm really planning to use. The 5th plan? You think you can still use the 5th plan? Do you still have the ability to use the 5th plan? Naipeo paused and said with disdain. You're about to have your chi sucked dry. How are you going to use the 5th plan? I'm using it right now, Lin Yi said with a straight face. I'm using it. Naipeo's face changed all of a sudden. Why? Suck it? Why don't you keep sucking? Why did you stop? Lin Yi easily pulled his hand back from Naipeo's palm. Naipeo had stopped sucking Lin Yi's chi. You! What did you do to the chi? All of a sudden, Naipeo's face turned red, and his body started to inflate like a balloon. In the next moment, before he could even finish his sentence, his entire body let out a deafening, earth-shattering sound. Boom! Naipeo exploded. Of course, this explosion didn't come from Naipeo's entire body, but from his inside. There was a huge explosion inside his body. Dash! Naipeo spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale as he fell to the ground, unable to move. Didn't you enjoy sucking it? Continue? I still have a lot of true chi. Do you want it or not? Lin Yi said coldly as he looked at Naipeo. This sudden turn of events caused everyone present to be dumbfounded. Just now, when Lin Yi and Naipeo were fighting, they had attracted the attention of the other teams, but they didn't know what was going on. From what they saw, Naipeo, who had the upper hand, suddenly exploded and fell to the ground, spitting out blood. Could it be that he'd absorbed too much energy and exploded? My meridians! All broken! Naipeo couldn't believe it, but the truth was right in front of him. He didn't know what Lin Yi did, but the chi he absorbed from Lin Yi seemed to have expanded countless times over. It was just a small ball of chi, but it made his meridians explode. His wasp absorption arts didn't even have time to convert it before tragedy struck. But this was the chi of an Earth-class early phase. Lin Yi was just a mystic late phase. How could he do this? Oh, you're the main character. You can fix it even if it's broken, Lin Yi said casually. You came out with a halo and a golden finger. It'll be fine. Lin Yi, just you wait. The day after day sect won't let you get away with this. My master won't let you get away with this, Naipeo said furiously. Oh, when did you guys decide to let me go? If it weren't for you, it'd be me, wouldn't it? Lin Yi shrugged as he asked in return. Humph. Naipeo had no hope left. He needed to get back to the sect as soon as he could. His meridians were all broken, and he needed to think of a way. The 4 plans Lin Yi had used before were just to stall for time, and talking to Naipeo for so long was just to stall for time. After all, Lin Yi had been compressing the chi bomb in his body. It wasn't until Lin Yi was done that Lin Yi activated the art of dragon mastery, letting Naipeo absorb his chi. And so, it didn't take long for Naipeo to absorb Lin Yi's chi bomb. Of course, Lin Yi's chi bomb had been carefully compressed as well. If he'd used his full strength, Naipeo would have been blown to smithereens. But Lin Yi wouldn't have been able to avoid getting hurt as well. But the rules of the Ice Palace were very clear. No one was allowed to die, and so Lin Yi could only injure or cripple Naipeo, not kill him. Of course, Lin Yi wouldn't explain these things to Naipeo. It didn't matter if he understood or not. Lin Yi was planning on using the same method to deal with the other people in Naipeo's sect. It'd be a waste of time if he let them find a way to deal with it. With that, Naipeo stumbled up from the ground, not even bothering to pick up his backpack as he ran down the mountain. He was heavily injured, but his endurance was incredible, and no one tried to stop him. After all, Naipeo might be crippled, but going against him now was the same as going against the everyday sect. Lin Yi had injured Naipeo. What was going on? The spectators all looked at Lin Yi with awe and respect in their eyes. At this moment, they all hurriedly slipped away, planning to hide as far away as possible. Who knew if Linny would come for their treasures as well? If Linny were to really do it, they wouldn't dare fight back. Nipeo wasn't strong enough, so what right did they have to go against Linny? Which one is Nipeo's? The snow Ganoderma? Linny turned to Niapeo and Niaoqiang as he asked faintly. Ling bro, no. Master Ling, Master Pao. Ugh. Pao's stuff is here, please accept it. Niapeo saw that Linny was looking at him, and quickly handed over Nipeo's backpack to Linny, afraid that he'd die if Linny wasn't happy. You guys hand it in as well, I don't need to do anything, right? Linny asked as he took the backpack. Chapter 1509. Chapter 1508. Feng Nitian's Pride. No need, of course not. This is supposed to be for you, Master Ling. Niapeo's face changed quickly, but he had no choice. If he didn't change his face now, wouldn't he be looking for death? He had already offended Linny in order to kiss Nipeo's ass, and now was the time to change. Linny took the things Zhuang Niapeo gave him and nodded. All right, you two can leave now. My hands are itching to see you too, I want to beat you up. Wah! Niapeo paused and quickly said. We'll disappear now, absolutely fast, faster than the speed of light. With that, Niapeo took Niaoqiang and ran away. Nipeo was now a cripple, and while they didn't know what Linny did, they were sure that if Linny did the same to them, they wouldn't have it easy. They sure run fast, faster than a rabbit. Yan Chichi looked at the two Zhuang brothers running away like monkeys when the tree fell, feeling a little unhappy. Where was the arrogance they had when they tried to rob her? Now that they saw Linny hurt Nipeo, they called Linny Grandpa. What the hell was that? All right, take your snow, Lingji. Don't lose it again, Linny said as he handed the herb back to Chi-Chi. Ah. Chi-Chi took the herb, a look of gratitude on her face. Thank you? Thank you? Linny nodded. No need to thank me, you did help too. Linny waved his hand. But I didn't help much. Chi-Chi was a little embarrassed. Her attack didn't do anything to Nipeo, and she saw it with her own eyes. I asked you to help me stall for time. All those plans before were just to stall for time. I never thought they would work, Linny said. But if you feel bad about it, you can give it back to me. No! Chi-Chi quickly put the herb away. You've already promised me. Ha! Linny smiled. We'll meet again. You've more or less got enough points, and even with Zhang Nipeo and the Zhuang brothers, we only have 500 points each. We need to get some more to pass. Can I go with you guys? Chi-Chi was really starting to get scared now. What if they got robbed again? She did not want to lose the snow Lingji that she had finally regained after losing it with great difficulty. You? With us? Linny was slightly taken aback. Don't worry, I won't cause you any trouble, and I won't ask for your treasures. I just feel safer this way, Chi-Chi said quickly. Then let's go. Linny had no reason to refuse, so he nodded. The news of Zhang Nipeo's defeat spread like wild. Many didn't see it with their own eyes, but they heard the news from the mouths of others. It was Lingyi who crippled Zhang Nipeo. Such shocking news caught these people off guard. Zhang Nipeo was from an ancient sect, a master with ultimate skills. How did he lose? Wasn't this Lingyi a little too strong? And so, these people changed from guarding against robbers, thieves, and Nipeo to guarding against robbers, thieves, and Lingyi. Of course, this was just a joke. The person they were guarding against now was Feng Nitian. After all, Feng Nitian was doing the same thing as Zhang Nipeo. He brought Yushan with him to rob other people's treasures. Nitian bro, I heard that Lingyi crippled Zhang Nipeo? What's going on? Why is he so strong? Yushan, naturally, heard the news as well. After all, Linyi and Yubing were on the same side. If Linyi was really that strong, then how was he supposed to deal with Yubing? Who knows? But don't worry about him. Even if he's strong, it doesn't matter. In front of me, he's nothing, Feng Nitian said. I can control anyone under Earth class. It doesn't matter if he's a spiritual practitioner or physical practitioner, he won't be able to escape from my domain. As long as he's in my domain, he won't be able to move. If he can't move, how can he attack? He can only get beaten up. Ha ha ha, that's right, that means that Nitian bro is much stronger than Zhang Naipeo. Yushan calmed down after hearing that. At that time, Nitian would use his godly arts and freeze Lin Yi in place. What would Lin Yi do then? No matter how strong he was, he'd just die. You can't say that, we all have our strengths. Although he said that, Foam Nitian was still very prideful, because Yushan was right, someone Zhang Naipeo couldn't handle. Foam Nitian had absolute confidence. But that Zhang Naipeo really isn't as strong as Nitian bro. He'll only get beaten up if he meets you, Nitian bro. If we lock him in place, he won't be able to touch us, and we'll be able to do whatever we want, Yushan said respectfully. Foam Nitian smiled faintly, not saying anything. He'd heard that Naipeo's wasp absorption arts was a passive skill. It didn't matter if he was locked in place or not. But even so, Nitian did think that he was stronger than Naipeo. If they were to fight, even if he couldn't do anything to Naipeo, he could still shoot him with a firearm after he froze him. Wouldn't he still be able to kill him? He didn't believe that Naipeo could turn bullets into chi. At the highest point of the mountain stood two girls, one in green and one in white. It was Qing and the sect master of the Ice Palace. From where they stood, they could see the entire view of the Ice Snow's Spirit Mountain. The vision and perception of a heaven-rank expert was not something an ordinary cultivator could compare to. Without the help of any electronic equipment, they could clearly see everything that was happening on the Ice Snow Spirit Mountain. That Ling Yi, interesting, the sect master commented faintly after seeing Ling Yi beat Naipeo. Yeah, I don't know what move he used to cripple Naipeo, Qing said, confused. Qing was a bit confused. But if an ancient sect's disciple is injured, won't they take it out on us? Would they dare? The sect master said calmly. For them, we changed the rules of the trial, not letting the participants kill each other. That's already giving them enough face. Now that he's alive, we've done our part. He dares to take his anger out on us? Even if the everyday sex elder were here, they'd only be on the same level as me. That's true. Qing nodded. We, the Ice Palace, have never been afraid of anyone. Chapter 1510. Oh? Doesn't that use up a lot of qi? Qing said with some surprise after hearing the sect master's words. In theory, it does use up a lot of qi. It's the same as using up your own strength to fight the enemy. The sect master paused, a little suspicious. But this person is a little special. And Qing, didn't he say this before? All of his qi had been sucked out by Naipeo, and he was a complete cripple. But in one night, not only did he recover his strength, he even broke through. It seems like there are a lot of special people amongst the freelancers. And Qing sighed. Too bad he's a man, there's no way he'll be able to become a core member of the Ice Palace. The Ice Palace didn't accept men, and this was an unwritten rule that wasn't made public, but all the core members of the Ice Palace knew about it. The Ice Palace's inner sect was all women. If a man were to enter, there was only one possibility, and that was that the heir of the Ice Palace had appeared. In order to continue the Ice Palace's legacy, the heir needed to find a husband to continue the lineage, but in all these years, no heir had ever appeared, so there were no men in the inner sect. As for those male trial-takers who fantasized about becoming an outer sect disciple of the Ice Palace, they would all be disappointed in the future. No matter how outstanding they were, they wouldn't be able to enter the core of the Ice Palace. Just like the owner, Li, he didn't just have a magical ability, he wasn't weak either. But after all these years, he was still a normal disciple guarding the door, never entering the inner sect. Our Ice Palace doesn't need outsiders. The Ice Palace mistress shook her head. Evidently, Lin Yi wasn't good enough for her. She was just curious, that was all. That's true. However, Palace Master, what do you think is going on with the lady that Ling Yi is carrying? Qing and the sect master were master and servant in name, but after the sect master Shifu left, she was the one taking care of the sect master until she grew up. She was more like an auntie. So the two of them weren't too distant from each other. In front of the sect master, Qing wasn't too restrained, and the sect master even called her Aunt Qing, because she had been calling him that since she was young. Even after she grew up and officially became the palace master, she still called him that. Because of the sect master's strength, even the Grand Elder had to treat her with respect. In the ancient sects, strength was everything, and the sect master's strength was there for all to see. No one could say anything about what she did, and no one dared. "I'm not sure, but it looks like he's dying." "I haven't checked yet," the sect master said. "Perhaps he's participating in the trial to get the right to trade for treasures to cure the friend he's carrying." "Perhaps that's the case." Qing nodded. As the sect master and Qing talked about Lin Yi suddenly felt like he was being watched. It wasn't because Lin Yi sensed anything, but it was a natural sixth sense. Lin Yi closed his eyes and entered the jade space, using the jade space's senses to see who was watching him. The jade space didn't warn him, so that meant the person watching him didn't have any intentions of ambushing him. But to Lin Yi's disappointment, Lin Yi could only guess that the person watching him came from above the mountain, but he couldn't see who it was. Lin Yi raised his head subconsciously, looking at the peak of the mountain. That was where the ice palace was. Could it be that the ice palace's people were watching the participants' every move? That had to be it. With that thought in mind, Lin Yi didn't care anymore. After all, it was normal for the ice palace to be watching him. Qing paused when she saw Lin Yi look up. "Did he notice us watching him? That shouldn't be possible. We are heaven class, and when we don't use our arts, low-level practitioners won't be able to sense our presence unless this person's sixth sense is naturally strong, or they've gone through some sort of professional training." The sect master shook her head. "Perhaps the perception of loose cultivators is very strong. For them to be able to survive, they are naturally a bit more powerful than those who came from aristocratic families," said little Qing. "But that young Chi-Chi is just SOSO. I wonder how a solo practitioner like her managed to survive until now," the sect master said with disdain. Because Chi-Chi was a girl, the sect master paid special attention to her, but the results were disappointing. "Yeah, it seems like we need to make a rule for the next test that the participants must be female. Otherwise, almost all the participants from the noble houses will be male." Qing nodded. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Enemies or people they didn't want to meet just had to meet. This was the situation Lin Yi and Yu Bing were in right now. They followed Skybolt Pig to search for the next treasure, but along the way, they saw Nitian and Yushan together, robbing another team's treasure. "If you don't want to be crippled, then hand over all your treasures." Yushan stood in front of the team members and said in a domineering manner, "You all know how powerful Brother Nitian is. If you dare to run or resist, I'll use my Nitian mystic art on you and cripple you." This team had just found a 300-year snow lotus, and beside it, there was a white bear guarding it. They had spent a lot of effort to defeat the white bear, and just as they were about to reap the fruit of victory, they bumped into Nitian and Yushan, and they came to steal it. They had naturally heard of Nitian's exploits, and so they didn't dare resist in front of him. They weren't Zhang Naipale, and they weren't Lin Yi. Chapter 15:11. "You're smart. I won't cripple you guys. Hurry up and go." Yushan happily took the spoils of war and waved at the team. The team, naturally, didn't stay for long. Seeing that Yushan was letting them go, they left quickly, relieved. "Ha, Nitian bro, you're so famous. Just stand here, you don't even need to say anything, you don't need to use any arts, and they'll just hand over the treasures obediently." Yushan's points had already broken through the 500 mark, and Nitian's had broken through the 800 mark. They'd been robbing and looting along the way, and they'd gotten quite a lot. "That's good, it saves me the trouble of fighting. I'll save my strength to help you deal with Yu Bing," Nitian said proudly. "I wonder where that short-lived bastard Yu Bing is hiding. Why haven't we seen him yet? He's not hiding from us, is he?" Yushan was getting impatient. As long as Yu Bing was crippled, the head of House Yu would be his for sure. House Yu had the intention of letting Yu Ning take over, but Yu Shan knew that Yu Ning would become the guardian of House Yu sooner or later. House Yu still needed a head of the house, just like Yu Shaochun right now. And so, this was the chance he was fighting for. This sentence was heard by Yu Bing, who just arrived, and he clenched his fists in anger. I'm a bastard, what are you? We're brothers, are you a little bastard? Eh? Isn't this my beloved big brother? You're finally here to die? Don't you know how much I've missed you? Yu Shan turned around and saw Yu Bing. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Finally, he delivered himself to him. Miss me to death? You want me to die, don't you? Yu Bing said faintly. Hey, even if that's the case, we're brothers, so we have to be more reserved. Yu Shan laughed. I heard you found a really strong helper, and he even crippled Zhang Naipao? Unfortunately, no matter how strong he is, he's just trash in front of brother Nikian. You can't say that. He was able to defeat Zhang Naipao, but because of my practitioner's arts, I'm invincible against anyone under the Earth class. Nikian waved his hand and said, acting like he was the king of the world. Yu Shan, you don't look like a loving person at all. Do you know that? I'm here to cripple you, Linny said faintly. I'll make you Bing the head of House Yu. As for you, the stumbling block, I'll get rid of you now. Humph! Yu Shan sneered. Indeed, the ignorant are fearless. He was about to die, yet he still dared to say such shameless words. Don't you know that in front of Nigian bro you're nothing? If I'm nothing, then you're even more of a piece of trash. Linny didn't say much as he slammed his palm towards Yu Shan. Yu Shan saw Linny coming at him, but he didn't dodge or evade. His lips curled into a mocking smile. Nikian bro, stop him! We'll play him to death slowly. But Yu Shan hadn't even finished his sentence when Lin Yi's palms slammed into his chest, sending him flying. His body flew in a parabola as he landed on the snow not far away, creating a huge crater. He spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with bits of organs, his face pale as a sheet. I'm an idiot, why didn't I dodge? My heaven-defying divine art needs time to charge up. Feng Nian said, disappointed that Lin Yi didn't live up to his expectations. Suddenly, he formed a few weird hand seals in the air, and when Lin Yi turned around and slapped him again, he used his heaven-defying arts. In an instant, Lin Yi was frozen on the spot. He was still in the same position as before, but he couldn't move at all, and he couldn't even speak. Why? Yu Shan didn't think that Nitian's art needed time to charge up. He thought that Nikian could control it as he pleased. Yu Shan felt a wave of sadness wash over him. Why was he so unlucky? He could have tortured Lin Yi and Yu Bing, but now, he was heavily injured by Lin Yi. Now, his meridians and organs were all damaged. Even if his meridians were healed by the meridian opening pill, his organs wouldn't be healed. Even if they were healed, his strength would drop drastically. Not to mention inheriting the position of the head of the house, he might not even be able to get enough elixirs like before. As a family, Yu Shan knew House Yu's style too well. In House Yu, there was no such thing as familial love, only family benefits. The house wouldn't take special care of him just because he was a descendant of House Yu. If he was crippled, the house might take care of him, but they wouldn't invest any more resources into him. Even if his father wanted to fight for it, his grandfather wouldn't allow it. Nikian bro. Why didn't you say so earlier? Yu Shan covered his sunken chest and said sadly. Who knew that you'd be so dumb that you wouldn't even dodge someone's attack? You're a mystic mid-phase. Even if you're weaker than a mystic late phase, you shouldn't be unable to dodge even one move, right? You're just a piece of trash. I really regret listening to you and working with you. Nitian looked at Yu Shan coldly. In his eyes, Yu Shan no longer had any value to him. He was just a cripple now, and the conditions he promised him before were no longer going to be fulfilled. I'm sorry, Nitian bro. But please avenge me, Nitian bro. If Yu Bing becomes a cripple like me, then I'll still have a chance to recover my strength. At that time, my promise will still be valid. Yu Shan saw the disappointment in Nitian's eyes and quickly said, Besides, he had calculated that out of the young men in House U, he and Yu Bing were the best. If Yu Bing were to be crippled as well, then he'd be on the same starting line as him. House U couldn't just let two of the best of the young generation be crippled, and so they'd try their best to save them. At this point, he couldn't just care about one thing and lose sight of the other. He'd be saved as well. And so, crippling Yu Bing was his last hope. Chapter 15:12. Since Yu Bing and Lin Yi were enemies, then he'd continue. Yu Shan was trash, but what he promised him before, Feng Niqian would still do it. This was the problem of an ancient noble house's promise. With this start, he believed that he would have many collaborators by his side in the future. Plus, after hearing Yu Shan's words, Feng Niqian didn't plan on letting Lin Yi and Yu Bing just like he said. If Yu Bing was crippled, he still had hope. Yu Shan, don't even think about it. Even if I'm crippled, I won't let you have it easy, Yu Bing said. That's not up to you. Yu Shan laughed, relieved after hearing that Feng Niqian wasn't planning on letting Lin Yi and Yu Bing go. Your teammates are locked by Niqian, bro. If you take another step forward, you'll be locked as well. Ah? Yu Bing paused and raised his head to look at Lin Yi, only to realize that Lin Yi wasn't moving at all. At this moment, Lin Yi was still in the posture of a palm strike, as if he was about to attack, but he couldn't. Lin Yi was indeed locked by Feng Niqian's art. Right now, Lin Yi could think, he could see what was happening in front of him, he could hear each other's words, but he couldn't move his body. As expected, Lin Yi thought to himself, it was just like what Yu Bing described, his body seemed to be locked by something, and no matter what, he couldn't move at all. Lin Yi, I admit that you are strong, able to defeat Zhang Naipao, but you will still lose in front of me. No one under Earth class can break through my domain. Your body won't be able to move. Niqian looked at the motionless Lin Yi, feeling a sense of accomplishment. He hadn't fought Naipao before, but they were both disciples of the ancient level, and he still had the intention to compete with him. It was just that they couldn't really fight because of their statuses, but neither of them were willing to give in to the other. Both of them wanted to be stronger than the other. But now, he could beat Lin Yi, and Lin Yi had injured Naipao. This meant that he could beat Naipao. How could he not be happy? Brother Niqian, I've finally found you. You are. Isn't this Brother Ling? Qikuan and Qijio weren't in the same team as Niqian, so they'd been looking for Niqian and Yu Shan the whole time. Now that they'd finally found Niqian. But something seemed to have happened. Master Kuan, it seems like they've started fighting, Qijio said softly. That's... Qikuan paused and hesitated, but he still retreated to the side. He had heard that Ling Yi had crippled Naipao, and it shocked him greatly. He didn't think that Ling Yi would be this strong, able to defeat Naipao from the ancient sect. This made Qikuan regret being with Yu Shan. If he didn't have Yu Shan, then wouldn't he, Ling Yi, and Niqian be invincible? But now, Qikuan saw that Lin Yi and Niqian were fighting, and after some hesitation, he decided not to help either side. As far as he was concerned, Lin Yi and Niqian's chances were 50-50, and he didn't think that Niqian could win. What? What's going on? We all know each other, and we're friends. Qikuan pretended like he didn't know what was going on. Qikuan, this has nothing to do with you, just watch from the side, Yu Shan quickly said, afraid that Qikuan would come and mess things up. All right. Qikuan was just thinking that he didn't have a reason to watch from the sidelines, so he agreed to Yu Shan's words. What should we do? Chi-Chi couldn't help but ask Yu Bing as she looked at the motionless Lin Yi. I don't know. But let's not mess things up. With Lin Yi taking on Naipao as a precedent, Yu Bing trusted Lin Yi. He wouldn't make a move if he wasn't confident. Oh. Chi-Chi frowned, but didn't move. All right, I'll take care of you first, then I'll take care of you too. Niqian looked at Chi-Chi and Yu Bing as he spoke to Lin Yi. With that, Feng Niqian swung his fist at Lin Yi. He didn't use any skills at all. From his point of view, Lin Yi was no different from a dead man. He could only stand there and take his punches. Using any skills was pointless. He might as well just throw a punch. Boom! A loud explosion sounded, and Yu Bing and Chi-Chi closed their eyes as far as they were concerned. Lin Yi was strong, but this time, there was nothing he could do. After all, Nikian was different from Zhang Naipeo. Nitian's arts were too special, and he could lock people in place and make them unable to move. This explosion was much louder than Naipeo's earlier explosion, and it could even be described as an earth-shattering sound. In an instant, all the snow around Lin Yi and Nitian was blown into the air, and the snow was flying all around them, making it impossible to see what was happening. Brother Nitian is really amazing. Not only is his Nitian divine skill heaven-defying, but even this ordinary move is also heaven-defying. Yushan looked at the sky full of snow and said respectfully. He felt much calmer now, knowing that Lin Yi wouldn't be able to survive this, and even if he did, he'd be on his last breath. Qikuan, on the other hand, had a shocked expression on his face as well. He didn't expect Nitian to be able to use such a strong move other than his arts. People from the ancient houses were indeed different. Ling Yi! Yu Bing called out subconsciously. His relationship with Lin Yi wasn't as simple as a temporary teammate. They were good friends, and even brother-in-law. He didn't want anything to happen to Lin Yi. The avalanche exploded with a strong aura, pushing Yu Bing, Chi-Chi, Qikuan, and Qijiu back. They were all practitioners, and that was why they didn't fall to the ground. Chapter 15-13. Chi-Chi really wanted to apologize to Lin Yi, but there didn't seem to be a chance. At the peak of the snowy mountain, Qing and the sect master, naturally, saw everything that was going on. The snow made it hard for them to see what was going on. "Aunt Qing, who do you think will win?" the sect master asked faintly as she looked into the distance. "Hard to say. But Feng Nian has a higher chance of winning, right?" Qing said. "I didn't expect the other ancient sects and ancient families to be this trashy. Their 2 disciples who trained in ancient techniques are trash." The sect master frowned, a look of disappointment and disdain flashing in her eyes. "Palace mistress, you mean? First class Ling won?" Little Qing asked in astonishment. "The winner is set, Feng Niqian's loss is set in stone," the sect master said. "Ling Yi won this round again. Just who is this guy? Is he really just a solo practitioner? Do you need me to look into it?" Qing asked. "No need, no matter how strong he is, it has nothing to do with us." The sect master waved her hand, telling Qing not to do that. The inner sect of the Ice Palace didn't accept male disciples or guest elders, so no matter how strong Lin Yi was, it had nothing to do with the Ice Palace. Yu Bing clenched his fists, breathing heavily as he stared at the scene. He wanted to see through the layers of snow and see what was going on, but he didn't have X-ray vision. He couldn't see what was going on, and he didn't know if Lin Yi was dead or alive. Chi-Chi, on the other hand, had made up her mind. "Lin Yi, we may not be friends, but you've helped me so many times. I, young Chi-Chi, am not an ungrateful person. But if you die, then the grudge between us will be over. But I will avenge you. Lin Yi, young Chi-Chi. I won't let Nitian and Yushan go. I'm not their match yet, but I believe that one day, I'll be able to." Qikuan and Qijiu, on the other hand, didn't dare get too close. They stood far away, watching the situation. Qikuan was a slick man, cunning and introverted. He was treading on thin ice in House Zhao, but he only had one goal: to become the head of the hidden house. In his eyes there was no such thing as arrogance, nor did he care about face. As long as someone could help him, he could become his ally. Even if that person was once his enemy, it didn't matter. But now, Zhao Qikuan wasn't enemies with these 2 groups, so no matter who won, Zhao Qikuan would be able to maintain his relationship with them. The snow that filled the sky finally dissipated under the blowing of the strong wind. Gradually, the situation in the field could be seen clearly. However, to everyone's surprise, there wasn't a single person left standing. Lin Yi and Nitian were both on the ground, and the white snow had turned red as well. Blood was everywhere, but they couldn't tell whose blood it was. Ling Yi! Yu Bing called out nervously. Nitian bro! The scene shocked Yushan as well. He didn't think that Nitian would be on the ground as well. How was this possible? Lin Yi couldn't move at all, and could only take the beating. How was Nitian injured? Finally, all the flying snow had dispersed, and everyone could finally see the specific situation in the field clearly. Ah! Yushan couldn't help but scream. He saw that Nitian's shirt was completely tattered, and his upper body was covered in blood. It was a horrifying sight, as if he had suffered a serious injury. On the other hand, Lin Yi didn't seem to be injured at all. Lin Yi was lying on the snow, and the only thing on his body was the unharmed woman. He didn't know how Lin Yi was, but from the surface, it seemed like Nitian was in a much more serious condition. The scene in front of him shocked Chikuan as well. As expected, the ancient noble houses weren't invincible, but with Zhang Naipeo as an example, it wasn't surprising that Nitian was injured, but Lin Yi, on the other hand, made Chikuan very wary. He didn't know how he was, but if he was fine, then Chikuan would pay any price to be friends with him. This was very important for him to become the head of House Zhao in the future. Just when everyone was in shock, the two people in the field moved at the same time. But to everyone's surprise, the first one to get up wasn't Lin Yi, but Nitian. Could it be that Lin Yi's injuries were more serious than Nitian's? Yu Bing and Yang Qiqi, who saw that Xiao Xiao was fine, let out a sigh of relief. Now, they couldn't help but get nervous again. Xiao Xiao looked fine, but Lin Yi was on the ground, and no one knew what was going on with him. Could it be that he was heavily injured? Or was he already? These people were right. Lin Yi's injuries were much more serious than Nitian's. But the severity of the injuries had nothing to do with the effects of the injuries. Although Nitian moved first, that only meant that he had enough qi in his body to support it. And Lin Yi's injuries were more serious because he had no qi left in his body. Right now, his meridians were all broken, and he was in the jade space, using every second to heal himself. This was the same as last time when he fought with Ma Zhu. There was no qi left in Lin Yi's body, and his meridians were broken as well. There was no way for him to recover his strength, and all he could do was slowly heal the wounds on his body. But if he wanted to heal his meridians, it was impossible without external help. The reason for this was because Lin Yi had used 2 qi bombs in a row today. The first time was on Naipeo, and although he didn't compress all of his qi, only half of it was used up, and Lin Yi didn't have time to enter the jade space to recover. And under that situation, Lin Yi couldn't enter the jade space to compress his qi again. It wasn't practical. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.